Tonight, I want to help you understand something quiet that has been happening inside you for a long time. Not a crisis anyone can see, not a breakdown that makes you collapse. Something softer, slower, and in some ways more frightening. A tired heart. A tired heart is not just being sleepy after a long day. It is that heaviness in your chest when you wake up and already feel done. It is moving through your routine, answering messages, showing up to work, holding conversations, while somewhere underneath you feel like you are constantly sinking. You still function, you still smile, but inside, the light feels dimmed, the colors washed out, the future strangely blank. Sometimes it shows up as numbness. You know you should care, but you actually don't feel much at all. Other times it is a quiet despair, not loud enough to call an emergency, just a low, steady sense that life is passing and you are watching it from behind glass. When you find yourself scrolling late at night, replaying the same memories, the same person, the same regrets, you can feel how much energy your heart is spending just to stay upright. Jung understood this state. He would say that this exhaustion is not only burnout, not only emotional overload. It is a sign that your psyche has lost contact with meaning, with the deeper self that gives your life a center. This is crucial to understand. When your outer life keeps going, but your inner life feels abandoned, the heart begins to tire in a very specific way. It is not simply weak, it is lonely for you. Let's start with a promise. If you can begin to understand your inner world through Jung's lens, you can stop being haunted by people, memories, and patterns that drain you. You can begin to reclaim the psychic energy you have poured into old stories, old relationships, and inner battles you never chose. That doesn't happen overnight, but it is possible, and it could set you free in ways that might surprise you. In this video, we will move slowly. We will explore what actually happens when your shadow is ignored, when projection shapes your relationships, and when individuation, the process of becoming whole, is stalled. We will talk about practical tools, journaling, active imagination, small daily choices that help you come back to yourself. The pace will be contemplative, respectful of the fact that your heart is already tired of quick fix advice, because you have probably tried those quick fixes, the motivational quotes, the forced gratitude lists, the distractions that work for an hour and then fade. Jung would tell you that your heart is asking for something deeper, not a trick to feel better, but a relationship with your own soul. And you do not need to believe every Jungian concept to benefit. You only need a willingness to look honestly and kindly at your inner life. Many people are like you, functioning on the outside, quietly collapsing on the inside. This is exactly where Jung's work speaks most clearly. In a moment, we will look at why one particular person might live rent-free in your mind and keep your heart exhausted. The reason is probably not what you think. Jung offers a very different explanation, and seeing it may be the first real rest your heart has had in years. So let's slow down here and name what is actually happening inside you. Because what you call a tired heart is not just stress and not just burnout from a busy week. Jung understood it as something deeper, something happening in the very way your psychic energy is trying to move and keeps getting blocked. Let's start with Jung's simple but powerful image. Your psyche as an energy system. Your thoughts, your feelings, your dreams, your relationships, they all carry energy. When that energy can flow toward meaning, toward love, toward creativity, you feel alive. Not perfect, but vividly present. When it cannot, when it is constantly diverted into anxiety, self-criticism, or silent endurance, it stagnates, and stagnation, over time, becomes exhaustion. This is crucial to understand. A tired heart is not just a body that needs sleep. It is a soul that cannot find where to send its energy. You wake up after 8 hours and still feel heavy. You sit at your desk, and the smallest task feels like climbing a mountain. You listen to someone you care about, and you know you should feel more, but inside, everything is muted, distant, slightly out of reach. Psychic exhaustion feels like life has faded from color into black and white. You move, you function, you answer emails, you make dinner, but there is no real flavor. You used to get excited about a book, a song, a walk in the evening light. Now you notice yourself watching your own life, like a movie you've already seen too many times. When you find yourself saying, "I'm so tired," and you don't only mean your body, this is the territory we are in. Often, this tiredness shows up as emotional numbness, not because you are cold and not because you don't care, but because your heart has been asked to endure too much without being allowed to feel it. Numbness is self-protection. It is your psyche putting a hand over the wound and saying, "No more right now." Jung would tell you that what looks like indifference is often a very intelligent defense. But there is a cost. To keep going, parts of you get pushed aside. The angry part, the grieving part, the hopeful, imaginative, childlike part. Over years, they become exiled, silenced, ignored, and every exile takes some energy with it. What actually happens when you keep doing this is that your conscious life grows thin, while your unconscious fills with unlived stories. So you go through the motions at work, but feel strangely detached from your own ambitions. You sit with your partner or your friends and notice that you are there, but not really there. Even on a good day, even in a beautiful moment, you catch yourself thinking, "Why can't I feel this?" Jung did not see this as a personal failure. He saw it as a meaningful signal. Your tired heart is a message that something in your soul is asking, quietly but constantly, to be heard. I want to help you understand that naming this is the first act of healing. When you can say, "My heart is tired," with honesty, you stop blaming your willpower and start listening inward. And much of what exhausts you is not on the surface at all. It lives in what you have had to push into the dark, into what Jung called the shadow. In the next part, we'll step into that darkness together and see why the very things you avoid may hold the key to your peace. So let's step there now, very gently. Let's start with a simple picture. Jung called the shadow everything in you that you learned was too much, not enough, dangerous, or unacceptable. And so you pushed it out of sight, not because you were bad, because you were trying to belong. You hid feelings, impulses, even tenderness, so you could stay in relationship with the people you depended on. I want to help you understand how concrete this is. The shadow is not an abstract idea. It's the anger you swallowed because someone told you anger is sinful. It's the tears you held back because you were praised for being the strong one. It's the sensitivity you buried because your culture admired toughness. Over time, you trained your mind to say, "This is not me," and to push it down. This is crucial to understand. The shadow is not only dark impulses, it also holds your buried vitality, your sexuality, your creativity, your capacity to say no, your need to be held. It contains the anger that would actually protect you, the grief that would cleanse you, the desire that would move you toward a real life. What you call too much might simply be your life force, locked in the basement. But there is a cost. Maintaining this inner split takes enormous energy. You are constantly managing impressions, constantly editing yourself, constantly pushing away what wants to rise. On the outside, you say, "I'm fine." On the inside, your heart is exhausted from holding the door shut. Think about what actually happens when you pretend you are never angry. You smile. You say, "It's okay. I understand." But your chest tightens. Your jaw aches. Your sleep is restless. Or you are always strong, always the helper, never the one in need. People lean on you, and you collapse later in private, scrolling, numbing, feeling strangely hollow. Or you are endlessly forgiving, but secretly you are seething, replaying the same story in your mind. This is shadow work your body is doing for you, all day, every day. Jung understood that the shadow forms in response to family, culture, religion, and your personal history. Someone told you who you were allowed to be: quiet, polite, grateful, productive, cheerful, selfless. So you exiled the parts that did not fit the script. You survived by becoming a fragment of yourself. Jung would tell you the task is not to destroy the shadow, but to recognize and integrate it, so its energy becomes available to you again. Integration does not mean acting out every impulse. It means admitting, yes, this too is in me, and learning to hold it consciously. And please hear this, everyone has a shadow. Having one does not make you bad, it makes you human. But when you refuse to see your shadow, it does not disappear. It goes outside. It walks towards you wearing other people's faces. In the next part, we'll look at how it does that, and why certain people can feel strangely charged, almost as if they are carrying something of yours. So let's stay with this shadow a little longer, because it is not only outside, wearing other people's faces, it is also inside, quietly wearing out your heart. Let's start with an image. Keeping something in the shadow is like holding a beach ball underwater. At first, it seems manageable. You press it down, you tell yourself you are in control, but you are actually using constant, invisible effort just to keep it from breaking the surface. This is crucial to understand. That effort is not abstract. It is your nervous system. It is your muscles, your breath, your attention. You become someone who is always slightly tense, slightly braced, even when you appear calm on the outside. So what actually happens when you live this way for years? You begin to monitor yourself the way a frightened child monitors a dangerous room. You watch your words. You watch your tone. You watch your reactions. You watch your desires. You become the internal police of your own soul, making sure nothing unacceptable slips out. And that monitoring takes energy. Every conversation costs more. Every conflict feels like a threat. Even simple pleasure can feel dangerous, because it might wake up something you worked hard to bury. Jung understood that this kind of chronic self-surveillance keeps the whole system on high alert. Over time, high alert becomes your baseline. Then you wonder why you feel so tired, why your heart feels heavy, flat, or strangely numb. Your body is exhausted not only from what you do, but from all the feelings you are working not to feel. For many people, the heaviest weight in the shadow is unexpressed grief. Losses you never really mourned. Goodbyes you pretended did not matter. For others, it is forbidden anger, the rage you push down because good people do not feel that way. For some, it is disowned sexuality, or envy you are ashamed to admit, or a simple human need to be cared for that you learn to despise in yourself. When you find yourself unable to rest, this is often why. The moment you slow down, the beach ball rises. Intrusive thoughts appear. Old scenes replay. Self-criticism gets louder. Shame starts talking. Rest becomes unsafe. So you reach for your phone, for work, for distractions. just to keep the shadow from surfacing. Jung would tell you that what you refuse to live consciously, you are forced to live unconsciously. It comes out as symptoms, compulsions, sudden outbursts, mysterious fatigue. Your life starts expressing the very story you tried to avoid. I want to help you understand one simple doorway into this. Ask yourself, gently, what am I always trying to prove or hide? Your answer will point toward where the shadow is draining you. And here is the next turn. Much of what you cannot bear to see in yourself, you begin to see, vividly, in other people. In the next section, we'll explore how this becomes projection, and why certain people suddenly feel charged with your own hidden life. So let's step into that now. Let's start with what actually happens when someone begins to live in your mind, as if they have taken up permanent residence there. You notice it at night, or when you are walking, or in the middle of work. Their face appears. A sentence they said replays. You imagine what you should have said, what they might say next. You feel pulled back into the same scene again and again. You tell yourself you should stop, and yet you cannot. The more you push them away in thought, the more they return. Jung would tell you this is not just about that person. This is crucial to understand. In his language, a projection has been constellated. Projection simply means that your psyche has taken some disowned quality, some unmet need, some old wound, and quietly placed it onto someone outside you, as if it belongs only to them and not at all to you. So you experience them as especially cold, or especially special, or especially dangerous, or especially perfect. You idealize them, or you demonize them. You overreact to small things they do. You feel hooked by their presence in a way that seems out of proportion to the actual relationship. Have you noticed that? The intensity is larger than the story between you would reasonably explain. From Jung's view, that excess intensity is the clue. It tells you that this person has become a screen for your own inner life. They constellate something in you. The cold, distant colleague who obsesses you may be carrying your own disowned coldness, the part of you that shuts down and refuses to need anyone. The arrogant friend you secretly hate may be mirroring a buried confidence you were never allowed to express. I want to help you understand how gentle this mechanism actually is. Projection is not a moral failure. It is not proof that you are weak or foolish. It is a natural way the psyche uses the outer world to show you what you are not yet ready to see directly in yourself. Jung understood that we meet our soul first as something outside us, and only slowly recognize it as our own. But there is a cost. When you find yourself constantly arguing with someone in your head, constantly replaying conversations, constantly building fantasies or resentments, your psychic energy is being siphoned away. Your heart grows tired because it is fighting invisible battles all day. It is trying to complete an inner conversation while you keep chasing an outer person. You do not have to force them out of your mind. That usually makes the grip tighter. Instead, you can begin to listen. What are they showing you about yourself? What feeling, what need, what strength becomes vivid when you think of them? In the next part, we'll slow down and learn how to turn toward that inner figure directly, so that the person who lives rent-free in your mind can begin to give back the piece of your own soul they have been carrying for you. So now, let's hold up that mirror a little closer, because Jung would tell you that the people who glow in your mind or burn in your mind are rarely just about themselves. They are carrying pieces of you. Let's start with this simple idea. What fascinates you most in someone and what disturbs you most in someone usually points to something unlived or unhealed in yourself. Not every preference does this. You can like a colleague and dislike a neighbor without much depth to it. But when you find yourself constantly looping around a person, constantly replaying what they said, what they did, what they might do next, you are no longer in ordinary liking or disliking. You are in projection. You can feel the difference. Ordinary feelings rise and fall. Projection feels charged, sticky. It pulls your attention back even when you want to let go. Your body reacts. Your heart speeds up or sinks just from hearing their name. This is crucial to understand because that intensity is a map. It shows you where your own shadow and your own unmet needs are trying to speak. Think first of the people you idealize, the ones you place on a pedestal. Maybe it is someone creative, wildly confident, spiritually deep, or simply calm in a way you believe you could never be. Jung understood that idealization often reveals your own unlived potential. You are not just admiring them. You are staring at a version of yourself you have not yet allowed to exist. When you say, "They are so brave, I could never be like that," notice the quiet pain in that sentence. A part of you is asking to be born. Then, the people you cannot forgive, the ones you mentally argue with at night. Sometimes they truly harmed you, and that reality matters. Yet Jung would also ask, what actually happens when their image returns again and again? Often, the hatred hides disowned traits. The selfishness, the coldness, the anger you see in them may also live, in smaller, more disguised forms, inside you. Admitting this does not excuse their behavior. It simply returns your energy to you. There are also the people you envy, the friend whose relationship seems easy, the coworker who speaks up. Envy is a bright arrow pointing to buried desire. It says, "I want that, but I am not allowed to want that." And the ones who make you feel irrationally inferior or superior, both can be defenses against seeing your sameness with them. Here is the inner inquiry. When you find yourself obsessed with someone, pause and ask, what do I imagine this person has or is that I am not allowed to be? Sit with whatever arises. I want to help you understand that the resistance you feel here is normal. It is uncomfortable to whisper, "I have that in me too." But that whisper could set you free. Because reclaiming these projections is not about blaming yourself or letting others off the hook. It is about no longer being unconsciously controlled by them. Each time you take back a quality you had exiled into another person, you become a little more whole. This is the beginning of individuation, Jung's path toward a quieter mind, an arrested, peaceful heart. In the next section, we'll explore how to work with these inner figures more directly, so that the people who exhaust you on the outside can become guides to healing on the inside. So let's go deeper into what that path actually is. Jung called it individuation, and it might be the missing name for what your tired heart has been silently longing for. Let's start with a simple picture. Individuation is the lifelong process of becoming who you actually are, not the role you perform for others, not the careful mask you built to survive. It is the slow integration of conscious and unconscious parts of your psyche, so that more of you can stand in the light without shame. Jung understood that inner peace does not come from perfection. It does not come from constantly thinking only positive thoughts or finally fixing every flaw. For him, peace came from wholeness, from making room for all that you are, the kind parts and the angry parts, the brave and the terrified, the generous and the needy. Wholeness, not purity. This is crucial to understand if your heart feels exhausted, when you live as only a fragment of yourself, when you constantly suppress what you feel, what you want, what you fear, your psyche has to work overtime to hold the lid on. That constant inner effort is draining. You look calm on the surface, but inside, you are spending enormous energy, keeping whole regions of yourself in exile. Individuation is the opposite movement. You begin to notice your projections and ask, what am I seeing in this person that belongs to me? You begin to meet your shadow, the traits and emotions you push down because someone once told you they were unacceptable. You start listening to dreams and symptoms, not as meaningless noise, but as messages from the parts of you that have no other voice. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, you adjust your outer life to match your inner truth. A different boundary here, a small no, where you used to automatically say yes, a tiny act of honesty in a relationship where you had been performing. This is what actually happens when individuation touches daily life. Your inner and outer stories begin to line up. You might worry that this sounds selfish, like turning away from others to focus on yourself. But Jung would tell you the opposite is true. As you become more whole, you become less reactive, less controlling, less desperate for someone else to carry your unlived life. You are less tempted to make another person responsible for your worth. That makes real love possible. So when you find yourself in crisis, in obsession, in emotional collapse, I want to help you understand another perspective. These may not be proofs that you are broken. They may be invitations from your psyche to individuate, to reclaim the pieces of soul you scattered into other people and old stories. This video cannot complete that journey for you. No video could, but it can give you a map, a language, a few tools to begin walking your own path toward a quieter mind and a rested heart. And in the next section, we'll turn to one of Jung's most powerful tools for this work, something that could set you free from pure thinking and into living dialogue with your inner world, a practice he called active imagination. Active imagination is Jung's mysterious yet practical technique for this. It sounds abstract, but it is actually very simple. It is a conscious, intentional dialogue with the images, feelings, and inner figures that rise up from below the surface of your mind. Let's start with what it is not. It is not ordinary daydreaming. In a daydream, you drift. You float along with the movie in your head, and you forget that you are there. In active imagination, you stay present. You watch what appears. You allow the scene or the character to unfold, and then you respond. You enter into a relationship with it. This is crucial to understand, especially when your heart is tired. When you repress your emotions, they harden and go underground. When you are flooded by them, they take over your whole inner sky. Active imagination offers a third path. You give your feelings a symbolic space to speak and be witnessed without letting them run your entire life. Imagine you keep waking up with the same image: a locked door, an ex's face, a dark forest at the edge of town. Instead of pushing it away or constantly analyzing it, you sit quietly, close your eyes, and turn toward it. You say, inwardly, "Show me more," and then you wait. What actually happens when you do this is that the unconscious begins to answer. Maybe the door cracks open. Maybe the forest reveals a small path. Maybe your ex looks directly at you and says something you did not script. I want to help you understand that this is not about pretending. It is about listening. Jung understood that the unconscious speaks in pictures, in strange mini-stories, in fragments of memory and fantasy. So you let the scene develop, and then you respond. You ask a question. You say what you feel. You notice what changes when you speak. Sometimes a figure appears, a child, a critic, a wise old woman, someone you loved, someone you fear. You can talk to them. You might write the conversation in your journal, letting their answers come as they will. You might imagine speaking aloud in an empty room. You might draw the figure, then write from their point of view under the drawing. This is how you begin a living dialogue with the parts of yourself you have abandoned. And yes, what appears may feel strange, dramatic, or childlike. That is normal. This is the language of the unconscious. It does not need to be logical to be meaningful. You are always allowed to stop. If you feel overwhelmed, you open your eyes, feel your feet on the floor, look around the room. You can return later. You are not required to explore everything at once. Boundaries apply on the inside too. Over time, you can weave this practice together with the other tools we've been exploring. You meet an image in active imagination, then you journal about it. You notice a symbol that repeats, then you protect space in your day to sit with it instead of losing that energy and projection onto someone else. This is how a quiet, daily dialogue with your soul begins. In the next section, we'll ground this even more, and I'll show you how to support this inner work with concrete outer boundaries that protect your heart from constant intrusion. So let's bring that quiet dialogue down onto paper, not as another task on your to-do list, not as a productivity hack, but as a small sacred room where your conscious mind and your unconscious can actually meet. A place that belongs only to you. A place where your tired heart does not have to perform. Let's start with this shift. Your journal is not evidence for anyone else. It is not content. It is a container. Jung understood that the psyche needs a protected vessel where images, feelings, and half-formed thoughts can appear without being judged. When you pick up a pen with that attitude, you are telling yourself, here, everything in me is allowed to exist. That alone could set you free. Writing also slows you down. Your thoughts may race, but your hand can only move so fast. And what actually happens when you move at the speed of ink is that patterns begin to show themselves. Certain phrases repeat, certain names, certain images, a door, a train, a particular street. When you see them on the page, you can't ignore them in the same way you ignore them in your mind. I want to help you understand one simple practice Jung would have loved, a projection journal. When you find yourself constantly thinking about someone, constantly replaying their words, you open the journal and write, "This is what I feel about you." You let it spill out, the longing, the anger, the fantasy, the fear. Then, on a new line, you ask, "Where is this in me?" And you answer as honestly as you can bear. The moment you do that, the relationship shifts from obsession with them to curiosity about yourself. Another exercise is what we might call a shadow letter. You address it from the part of you that is angry, needy, jealous, or simply exhausted from being strong. You let that voice speak in the first person, without correcting its grammar, without softening its edges, without explaining it away. This is crucial to understand. You are not endorsing every impulse. You are allowing your shadow to stop carrying its burden alone. Then there is the tired heart check-in. Once a day or once a week, you ask on the page, "What is my heart carrying today?" And you wait. You might write about a small humiliation at work, or the way you swallowed tears so someone else would not feel uncomfortable. You add, "What did I not allow myself to feel this week?" And you listen for the quiet answer that finally has somewhere to land. You do not have to analyze every word. Often the healing comes simply from letting something be spoken and seen by you. If you feel fear or resistance as you face the blank page, that is not proof you are doing it wrong. It usually means something important is close. You can start with 3 sentences. You can even write, "I don't know what to say," until something softer appears underneath. And remember, your unconscious does not speak in words alone. It speaks in images and symbols, a color that keeps returning, a landscape you draw in the margins. In the next section, we'll explore how learning this symbolic language can soothe your tired heart and guide you toward the outer boundaries that protect your inner life. So let's step into that language now. Let's start with what Jung actually meant by a symbol, because this is crucial to understand if your heart feels tired and numb. A symbol is not just a sign. It's not a simple label. It is an image, an object, a small motif that carries more meaning than you can fully explain. It might appear in your dreams. It might show up in a daydream on the train. It might arrive in the way your hand keeps drawing the same shape in the margins. You sense it matters, but you can't quite say why. Jung understood that the psyche creates symbols when words are not enough. When something deep in you cannot yet be spoken directly, it does not simply disappear. It moves into images. It becomes a scene, an animal, a piece of weather inside your mind. And this happens most intensely in times of crisis and transition, when your old story is breaking down, but the new one has not arrived. So when you find yourself waking up with the same strange dream, or constantly drifting into the same inner movie during the day, I want to help you understand what actually happens when you ignore that. The image does not give up. It repeats. It intensifies. It starts to drain your energy because it is carrying a message that wants a relationship with you. Begin by gently noticing what keeps returning. Is there an animal that follows you from dream to dream? A house you are always walking through? A certain kind of weather, like heavy fog or sudden storms? Perhaps a single color that seems to glow against everything else. Your unconscious is speaking in these details. Imagine, for example, a locked door you can never open. On the surface, it is just a door. Symbolically, it might be blocked feelings, a part of yourself you have shut away, or a flooded house, rooms filled with water you cannot control. That could be overwhelming emotion, grief, or fear that has risen higher than your usual defenses, or a withered tree in the center of a field, a tired heart, a life that feels drained of sap and meaning. You do not have to force these images into a dictionary. Instead, sit with them. You can draw the locked door. You can place a small key on your desk as a reminder. You can write a page from the perspective of the flooded house, letting it speak as I. Ask the withered tree, on paper, what it has been living through. The goal is not clever interpretation. The goal is relationship. You turn toward the symbol and quietly ask, what do you want me to know? And then you wait. You listen. You let your body react. When the unconscious feels that its messages are being received, something softens. Symptoms ease. Inner pressure lowers. The image no longer has to shout through anxiety, exhaustion, or a constantly racing mind. But inner listening is only half of the healing. Your tired heart also needs protection in the outer world. In the next section, we'll explore how boundaries in your daily life can guard the new life growing inside you. So now we turn to the outer work, to the quiet, practical ways you can actually guard the life of your heart in the middle of ordinary days. This is crucial to understand. Without some protection in the outer world, your inner work will constantly be leaked away. Let's start with a simple image. Boundaries are the lines that protect what is precious inside you. Your time, your attention, your emotions, your body. They are not walls against love. They are the shape that allows love and care and real presence to exist without destroying you. Jung understood that for any real transformation to happen, there must be a container. In alchemy, which he studied obsessively, the vessel is sacred. If it cracks, the fire goes out or burns wildly. Your psyche is the same. Without limits, your psychic energy either spills everywhere or becomes chaotic. You feel scattered, overrun, constantly tired, and you don't even know why. Think about what actually happens when you have poor boundaries. You say yes when you mean no. You answer messages at all hours. You absorb someone's moods as if they were your weather. You rush in to rescue, to explain, to soothe. And afterward, your chest feels heavy. Your mind keeps replaying the conversation, and you have no energy left for your own dreams, your own healing, your own individuation. A tired heart is often a boundaryless heart, not because you are weak, but because you were trained to overgive. Maybe as a child, your safety depended on reading the room, calming the anger, anticipating needs. That pattern once protected you. Now it constantly pulls you away from yourself. Jung would tell you that your life energy is being lived through others instead of through your own path. You might feel a quiet fear here. The fear that if you set boundaries, you will become selfish, cold, unkind. I want to help you understand something. When you never say no, you are not actually more loving. You are more likely to project your unmet needs onto others, to expect them to finally give you the care you refuse to give yourself. Boundaries reduce this projection. They make the relationship cleaner, more honest, more adult. So what does this look like in practice? It can be as concrete as limiting contact with someone who constantly triggers obsessive thoughts, even if only for a while. Setting time limits on emotional labor, so every call doesn't turn into 2 hours of unpaid therapy. Creating tech-free spaces in your day, where no one can reach into your mind through a screen and pull your attention away from your inner life. Start very small. 1 honest no, 1 delayed reply, 1 protected hour where you do nothing but rest, journal, or simply listen inward. These are experiments, not ultimatums. And yes, you will probably feel guilt, anxiety, even a little panic at first. That is expected. It is the old training protesting, not proof that you are doing something wrong. As you keep going, something subtle shifts. Your energy begins to pool inside instead of constantly flowing outward. Your tired heart has a chance to speak, not in crisis, but in whispers. In the next section, we'll listen more closely to what that heart is actually saying about the life you are meant to live. So now your heart is whispering a little more, but often, the moment it speaks, another voice cuts in. The hard one, the one that says, "Why are you still like this? Why can't you just move on?" That voice doesn't just hurt you, it actually exhausts you. Let's start with that inner critic. It calls you weak for needing rest. It calls you dramatic for crying again over the same person. It calls you lazy for not getting over it fast enough. It tells you that being constantly preoccupied with someone means you're pathetic, or broken, or behind in life. Notice how that voice never asks what actually happens when your heart is this tired. It only attacks. Jung understood that this attitude toward the psyche is violence in a subtle form. He did not sit with people and call their symptoms stupid or excessive. He approached dreams, obsessions, and fatigue with deep respect and curiosity. When someone was numb or obsessed or unable to let go, He listened as if the psyche were speaking in a coded language. This is crucial to understand. For Jung, your exhaustion is not an enemy. It is a message. I want to help you understand how different that is from how you usually treat yourself. When you find yourself lying awake, mind racing, replaying a conversation for the 100th time, what do you say to yourself? Do you sigh and think, "What is wrong with me?" Do you scold yourself for still caring, still checking, still imagining their life without you? That automatic self-talk becomes a second wound, layered on top of the first. So we begin with a simple reframe. Instead of, "What is wrong with me?" you ask, "What is my psyche trying to show me through this?" It is a small shift in words, but a large shift in relationship. One question attacks, the other listens. One drains your energy, the other starts to gather it back. Imagine someone you love, whose heart is clearly tired. You would not lean over them and say, "Hurry up, heal faster, stop being so sensitive." You would move slowly, you would speak gently, you would not rush them to be better by tomorrow morning. Jung would tell you that you deserve the same tone from yourself. So here is a brief daily practice. Place a hand on your chest. Take 3 slow breaths. With each breath, silently say, "I see how tired you are. I am listening." That is all. No analysis, no demand to change. Just a small act of inner courtesy. When you relate to yourself this way, inner work becomes safer. The unconscious is more willing to reveal itself when it is not met with attack. Images, memories, and insights begin to surface that were previously held back for protection. And as you soften here, something else begins to shift. The way you relate to other people and to the people who live in your mind will slowly change as well. In the next section, we'll look at how this new attitude toward your own heart can reshape the relationships that tire you the most. So let's stay with that shift for a moment. Because as your attitude toward your own heart softens, something else becomes possible. You can begin to see your relationships differently, not just as sources of pain, but as mirrors that show you what is really happening inside. Let's start with one of Jung's most challenging ideas. He believed you do not meet people by accident, especially not the ones you can't stop thinking about. Jung would tell you that intense relationships constellate unconscious material. They pull hidden patterns, forgotten wounds, and unlived desires up to the surface, where you can finally see them. This is crucial to understand if your heart feels tired from someone who lives constantly in your mind. Because what actually happens when you feel obsessed with a partner, an ex, a friend, or even a public figure, is that they begin to carry something of yours, a piece of your own story, a piece of your own soul that you have not yet claimed. Jung called this projection. In close relationships, it becomes very powerful. The partner who triggers your abandonment wound is not only hurting you, they are also touching the lonely child in you who once felt left behind. The friend whose success secretly stings may be awakening your buried ambition, the part of you that wanted more but decided it was safer to stay small. The ex you cannot stop replaying at night may be holding the image of the confident, alive version of yourself you only allowed to exist in that relationship. When you find yourself caught like this, it does not mean you should stay. It does not mean you must tolerate harm or disrespect so you can learn the lesson. You can leave, and sometimes you must. But even as you step away, you can ask a different question. Not only, why did this happen to me? But, what did this relationship awaken in me that was asleep before? That question could set you free, because the moment you turn from only fighting the outer person to working with the inner pattern, some of the exhaustion begins to lift. Your heart is no longer spending all its energy trying to control someone else's behavior. It is slowly reclaiming the energy it had invested in the projection Jung understood that individuation is never done in isolation. Other people are the stage on which your inner drama becomes visible. Not your parents only, not your partner only, not your ex, not your friends, but each person who stirs you deeply is like a spotlight on a part of yourself that wants to come home. In the next phase of this journey, we'll begin to gather these scattered insights. You'll see how all of these mirrors, all of these tired heart relationships, can be woven into a more coherent and hopeful way of living with your own heart. So now we begin to weave all of this into your actual days, not as a grand transformation, but as a kinder climate around your tired heart. I want to help you understand how small, almost quiet shifts in your rhythm can slowly change the whole tone of your inner life. Let's start with where you've been. You've met your shadow, the parts of yourself you pushed down that now drain your energy from below. You've seen projection, the way someone can live in your mind as a character in your story, carrying needs and fears you never claimed. You've touched individuation, this lifelong movement toward becoming a whole person instead of a fragmented one. You've experimented with active imagination, speaking with images and inner figures instead of constantly arguing in your head with people who are not there. You've tried journaling, letting words hold what your heart cannot yet say out loud. You've noticed symbols, dreams, small outer events that seem to echo your inner state. You've begun to set boundaries, to say, "This is me, this is not me," and you've practiced self-compassion when you see how tired you actually are. This is crucial to understand. Most real transformation does not arrive as a dramatic breakthrough. It arrives as repetition, as small acts done again and again, until your nervous system starts to believe you, until your heart starts to trust that it no longer has to scream to be heard. So imagine a simple daily rhythm. In the morning, before you look at your phone, place a hand on your chest and ask, "Heart, how are you today?" Not, "What do I have to fix?" Just, "How are you?" Notice one word, heavy, numb, hopeful. That is enough. Midday, when you find yourself pulled back into someone else's mood, use a boundary reminder. Silently say, "Their feelings are theirs, my feelings are mine." Then ask, what actually happens when I take my energy back, even for one breath? Feel your shoulders, your jaw, your own body. In the evening, write 1 or 2 sentences, not a perfect journal entry, just a brief reflection. Today, my heart felt, or today I noticed this projection. Jung understood that even this small act of witnessing begins to change the relationship you have with yourself. To keep it gentle, choose one Jung-inspired practice for the week. Maybe you track projections, writing down each time your mind tells a dramatic story about someone. Maybe you draw one symbol that appears in your dreams. Maybe you sit for 5 minutes with active imagination, asking an inner figure, "What do you need from me?" One focus, repeated, could set you free from the pressure to do everything at once. If you can, create a small physical space, a chair by a window, a corner with a blanket, a candle you light only when you are listening inward. Over time, your psyche learns, "Here, I am received." And when you miss days, when you feel numb or too exhausted to care, this is not failure. This is the rhythm of inner work. The tide goes out, the tide comes in. You return when you can. The aim is not to erase all pain. It is to become more intimate with your experience, so it does not have to hijack your thoughts or your relationships to get your attention. As you keep walking this way, step by small step, you will begin to notice something subtle. You will start to trust your own inner guidance more than any external script. And that quiet trust will lead us into the deeper stages of this journey together. So, before we go any further, I want to pause with you right here on this quiet threshold. You have already stayed with some demanding ideas: shadow, projection, individuation. That is not a small thing when your heart is already tired and your mind feels overfull. It takes energy simply to listen, to stay present, to notice yourself instead of drifting back into the old story about someone else. I want to help you understand that this effort you are making is already part of the healing. You are slowly turning your attention back toward home. Let's start with the promise that has been running underneath everything so far. When you begin to understand your shadow, when you see how projection constantly pulls pieces of you into other people, and when you walk the path of individuation, something very simple begins to happen. Your scattered energy starts to return, not all at once, not dramatically, but quietly, in small pockets of relief and inner peace. Jung understood that a tired heart is often a heart carrying unlived life, unspoken anger, ungrieved losses. Those disowned parts slip into the shadow and then leak out as obsession, numbness, or exhaustion. This is crucial to understand because it means you are not weak. You are overloaded with what has never been allowed to speak. Some of what we have named may feel abstract, maybe even unsettling. Words like unconscious, active imagination, inner images can sound distant from your daily life. But what actually happens when you meet this new inner language is very human. You start to have words for the ache you have always felt, but could never quite describe. Confusion at this stage is not a problem. It is a sign that new meaning is forming. For now, I want to invite something very simple. From everything you have heard so far, choose one insight that touched you. Maybe it was the idea that the person living in your mind is partly a projection. Maybe it was the thought that your tired heart is carrying a story you have never told. Hold just that one thing as a companion, not as a task. You do not need to fix it, only walk beside it. And then, if you can, give your body a brief signal of safety. A slow breath in, a longer breath out, a small stretch of your shoulders, a sip of water. Let your nervous system feel that it is allowed to soften while your mind continues to explore. From here, we will move more deeply into how old wounds quietly script your relationships today, into how to work with dreams and symbols, into practical ways of talking with the parts of yourself you once had to banish just to survive. You can move at your own pace. You can pause, rewind, return to any section as many times as you need. Inner work is not a race. It is a relationship with yourself, and relationships ripen slowly. As we step forward, keep this in the back of your mind. The very places where you feel most stuck, most ashamed, may actually be the doorway to your deepest peace. The parts you least want to turn toward might be holding the key that could set you free. And for many people, that doorway looks like this: one person who will not leave your mind. Let's start with naming it honestly. You are trying to fall asleep, and suddenly, you are back in that conversation with your ex. Or you are in the middle of work, and a single comment from your boss starts replaying on repeat. You rehearse what you should have said, what you will say, what they might be thinking. The scene runs again and again. It will not stop. It feels like someone is living rent-free in your head. You might notice how constant it is. In the shower, on the train, while you cook. Imagined arguments, private fantasies, regrets that will not let go. You tell yourself you are just trying to understand, but your heart feels heavier every day, more tired, more discouraged, as if your emotional energy is quietly leaking away. Jung understood this state very well. He would not have called it love. He would have called it a sign that something in you is trying to reach you through the image of that person. This is crucial to understand. The more disproportionate and intrusive the fixation feels, the more likely it is that the real story is happening inside, not outside. In Jungian language, what actually happens when one person fills your mind like this is usually projection. Projection means that qualities, needs, and wounds in your own psyche are unconsciously placed onto someone else. You then react to them as if they truly live out there, in that other person, instead of in yourself. You feel rejected by them when you are actually rejecting a part of you. You chase them when a lost part of you is begging to be found. This is where heart fatigue enters. When you find yourself carrying another person around in thought all day, you are also carrying the weight of your own unlived feelings. Attention is energy. Every mental replay is a small withdrawal from your inner account. Over weeks and months, that constant outward investment erodes self-trust. You begin to believe that peace depends on what they do, what they say, how they see you. It is important to differentiate here. Caring about someone, being attracted, missing them at times, is part of a healthy relationship. What we are speaking about now is different. It feels compulsive, disproportionate, intrusive. You try to stop thinking about them and you cannot. You feel exhausted afterward, not nourished. From a Jungian view, the person you cannot stop thinking about may actually be a symbolic figure in your inner world. They might represent a disowned anger, a forbidden desire, a childhood longing for safety, or approval that never found a place. I want to help you understand that this does not mean you are to blame. It means your psyche is creative. It uses outer figures to carry inner truths until you are ready to see them. Many people with tired hearts are secretly haunted by one or two central figures like this: an ex who left, a parent who never really saw you, a friend who betrayed you, a crush who never chose you back. You are not strange for this. You are human. Jung would tell you that seeing the projection is the beginning of freedom. When you realize that a piece of your own soul has been living in their image, you can begin to call that energy home. In the next sections, we will gently decode what this person might represent in you, so the obsession can soften, and the life locked inside it can finally return to your own heart. So let's slow down and look more closely at what this actually is. Because if a piece of your soul has been living in someone's image, you need to know what that really means in daily life. Let's start with a simple definition. Projection is what happens when you unconsciously place your own feelings, qualities, and stories onto someone else, and then react to them as if those things truly belong to them. You don't say, "This is my fear, my longing, my wound." You say, "This is who they are. This is what they're doing to me." I want to help you understand this in very ordinary terms. Imagine you walk into a room and someone barely looks at you. Instantly, your mind says, "They don't like me." You feel rejected, tense, small. But underneath that reaction, there may be a deeper truth. You don't actually like yourself in that moment. You are constantly judging your own worth. And that quiet person becomes the screen where your self-judgment is projected. Or think of idealizing a new partner. You see them as endlessly patient, wise, strong, the one who will finally make you feel whole. In reality, you are projecting qualities you long to grow in yourself. Their confidence, their calm, their creativity. They become the carrier of your unlived life, and you cling to them because you think they are the source of the light that is in fact trying to awaken inside you. The opposite also happens. You might demonize a coworker who is blunt, ambitious, or emotionally expressive. You tell yourself a story. They are selfish. They are too much. Jung understood that very often, that person is carrying traits you repress in yourself. Your own anger, your own desire to be seen, your own neediness or vulnerability. Instead of meeting these qualities inside, you fight them outside. This is crucial to understand. Projection is not a moral failure. It is a natural psychological function. It is one of the ways the unconscious introduces you to parts of yourself you are not yet ready to face directly. The problem is not that you project. The problem is when you stay stuck there and believe that your story about the other person is the whole truth, instead of a mirror. When you find yourself constantly reacting to someone, constantly spinning mental stories about what they meant, why they did that, how they feel about you, your heart gets tired. All that psychic energy is tied up in managing the outer figure, instead of turning inward to the place that is actually hurting. Jung would tell you that this is where the shadow is at work. The shadow is made of disowned qualities, your anger, your sensuality, your tenderness, your hunger for recognition. When these live in the dark, they seek expression through projection. You chase them in others, or you fight them in others. And either way, you exhaust yourself. So the next time you feel a strong charge around someone, pause. Ask quietly, what might this person be carrying for me? What part of me am I seeing out there? This doesn't mean they have no responsibility for their behavior. It means you are taking back your part, so your peace is not completely at the mercy of their choices. In the next section, we will go further. We will map what you are projecting onto the one person who lives most powerfully in your mind, and what your tired heart is secretly asking you to reclaim as your own. So now that you see you're projecting something, we need to look more closely at what shape that projection takes. This is crucial to understand because it usually shows up in two powerful emotional costumes that can quietly exhaust your heart. Let's start with the first face, idealization. This is what actually happens when you place exaggerated goodness, wisdom, beauty, or power onto someone. They become the answer, the savior, the missing piece of your life. You don't just like them, you orbit around them. Their messages lift you. Their silence crushes you. Your mood, your sense of worth, your plans for the future begin to bend around their presence in your mind. Maybe it's an ex you still secretly place on a pedestal, convinced no one will ever compare. Maybe it's a spiritual teacher, or a therapist, or a crush you barely know, who has become the one person who could finally make you feel whole. When you find yourself constantly checking your phone, constantly replaying their words, constantly wondering what they think of you, Jung would tell you, this is not just love or admiration, this is projection. In idealization, you inflate the other person with psychic energy that actually belongs to you. Your own unlived wisdom, your own beauty, your own power gets transferred onto their image. And then you feel small in comparison. You seek their approval. You fear losing them. You feel empty without their attention. They hold silent control over your emotional state, even if they are not doing very much at all. The second face is the mirror opposite, demonization. Here, you place exaggerated badness, cruelty, stupidity, or danger onto someone. They become the main problem, the villain, the source of your suffering, the parent you blame for everything, the boss you see as pure evil, the ex-partner you describe as a monster in every story you tell yourself. You might not talk to them anymore, but inside, the relationship continues. You replay hurts, you rehearse arguments, You fantasize about revenge or about finally proving them wrong. You obsess over their flaws, and again, you are inflating them with your energy. They receive more of your life force, more of your time and attention than they actually deserve. I want to help you understand that both idealization and demonization are the same mechanism, two sides of one coin. In both cases, the image in your mind is bigger than the real person. In both cases, your heart is pulled outward, away from your own center. This doesn't mean you excuse real harm or deny real goodness. It means you begin to notice when the emotional intensity is out of proportion to the actual situation, when the story in your mind is louder than what is happening here and now. So gently ask yourself tonight, do you tend to idealize more or demonize more? Which person in your life is carrying this exaggerated image right now? Seeing this clearly could set you free, because as you start to withdraw these projections, your heart will feel less haunted, less driven, more available for genuine connection and self-care. And in the next section, we will go even closer. We will ask, what exactly have you given away to this person in your imagination? And how can you call it back, piece by piece, into your own life? So now we need to look at the cost, not in abstract terms, but in the quiet currency of your body, your breath, your sleep. Let's start with this. Every intense projection carries a piece of your life energy, your attention, your imagination, your hope and your fear, your longing and your anger. All of that is psychic energy, what Jung called libido. And when you give it to an inner image of someone, that energy is no longer available for you. I want to help you understand what actually happens when you spend hours in that inner relationship. You replay what they said. You rewrite what you should have said. You rehearse what might happen, what you wish would happen, what you are terrified will happen. This constant mental rehearsing keeps your nervous system in a low-level state of activation, as if the conversation is still going on, as if the danger is still present. Your body feels this, the tight chest that appears when you see their name on your phone, the shallow breathing when you lie in bed, and your mind starts spinning, the racing thoughts at night that will not let you rest, the heaviness in your limbs the next morning, like an emotional hangover after a simple interaction. This is not imaginary. This is the cost. Jung understood that projection does not just distort how you see someone, it hijacks your inner space. Instead of your psyche being a home for your own feelings, your own creativity, your own rest, it becomes a stage where one person plays every role. They are the critic, the lover, the judge, the savior, the enemy, and you are left as an exhausted audience to your own inner theater. There is a quiet grief here. When someone lives in your mind, there is less room for you, less room for your needs, your voice, your small, quiet joys, the walk you do not take, the book you do not read, the idea you do not follow, because your energy is already spent in an invisible relationship. This is crucial to understand, because this absence is part of why your heart feels so tired. Jung would tell you, psychic energy tied up in projection is not available for growth, for play, for love rooted in reality, for making meaning out of your own life. It is like money locked in a frozen account. You feel poor, not because you have nothing, but because what you have cannot move. For a moment, gently, I want you to measure this. When you find yourself thinking about this person, notice how long. Is it 5 minutes, 20, an hour scattered across the day? Imagine adding that up over a week, a month, a year. Feel, without blaming yourself, the weight of that investment. You might feel a wave of shame as you do this. embarrassment at how much space they take in your mind. If that is arising, you do not need to push it away, but you also do not need to believe its story. Shame is not required here. Awareness is enough for now, and nothing is permanently lost. The same energy that is now bound up in projection can be reclaimed and slowly redirected toward healing, creativity, and inner peace. In the next sections, we will walk through how to begin that reclamation in concrete ways, how to close this invisible energy leak so your tired heart can finally begin to rest and repair. So now we come to a very delicate question. If the energy is bound up in this one person, who are you actually with inside yourself when you think about them? Let's start with this. In Jungian work, the person you cannot stop thinking about is very often not just themselves. They are a stand-in, a carrier of an older image, a living symbol of someone or something that has been shaping your inner world for a long time. This is crucial to understand. On the surface, it looks like a new relationship, a new crush, a new boss, a new friend. But underneath, an old story is quietly repeating itself. Maybe your demanding boss is not just a demanding boss. When you find yourself shrinking in their presence, over-preparing, panicking about their approval, you might actually be back with a critical parent. The tone of voice is different, the office is different, but the emotional posture is the same. Small, afraid, never enough, or there is the unavailable crush. They text sometimes, disappear for days, stay vague about how they feel, and your heart hooks in even deeper. Jung understood this as the psyche, gravitating toward what is familiar. Perhaps you once had an emotionally distant caregiver, someone whose warmth you could sense but never quite reach. Now your whole body believes that if you can just make this one person choose you, you will finally heal that original distance. Sometimes the figure is brighter, a charismatic friend who walks into a room and fills it. You think about them constantly, compare yourself, orbit their life. In your mind, they may be carrying the confident, expressive self you never felt allowed to be. They are not only a friend, they are the symbol of your unlived possibility. I want to help you understand what actually happens when this occurs. The psyche tends to repeat familiar emotional patterns, hoping for a different outcome this time. That is why certain types of people feel magnetically charged for you. Your energy is not just moving toward them, it is moving toward an unfinished scene in your own history. So you can begin to ask very gentle questions. Who does this person remind me of, in feeling if not in facts? When have I felt this exact emotional texture before? Not just the story, but the climate. Around them, do you feel small, unseen, controlled, abandoned, rescued, worshipped, judged? You might take out a journal and explore it slowly. If this person were a symbol, what would they stand for in my life story? What old wound seems to wake up when I think about them? Let the answers come in fragments, images, body sensations. You are not interrogating yourself. You are listening. And if nothing clear appears, that is all right. You are planting a living question in the psyche. It will work on you in the background. Insights in Jungian work often arrive sideways, in dreams, in sudden shifts of feeling, not on command. As you begin to see the hidden figure behind the obsession, something important becomes possible. You can slowly redirect your healing efforts away from the outer person and toward the original wound, the unmet need, the forgotten self. Your feelings do not become less real. They become more meaningful because they are linked to the larger story of your life. In the next section, we will turn toward that deeper story more directly, and I will show you how to begin an inner dialogue with these figures. so you are no longer trapped in endless outer rumination. So now that you've turned toward the deeper story, we can make it very concrete. Let's start with a simple image. Imagine that the person who lives constantly in your mind is not really a person at all, but a mirror. Every time you think of them, every time your heart tightens around their name, that mirror is quietly reflecting something about you that you have not fully owned. This is crucial to understand, because as long as you believe the mirror is them, you stay trapped in their direction. As long as you chase the reflection, you never turn around to see the one who is actually being reflected. Jung understood that what obsesses you is usually what is trying to return to you. So here is the mirror test. Take a page. At the top, write their name. Then, without censoring yourself, write down the top 5 qualities you see in this person. Anything counts. Admirable or disturbing, confident or selfish, free or cold, creative or controlling. Do not make it polite. Do not make it spiritual. Make it honest. Then, one by one, sit with each quality and ask, very quietly, where does this live in me? When you find yourself wanting to say, it doesn't, pause. Ask again, where have I been like this, secretly or openly, in the past, in fantasy, even just in my fears? I want to help you understand that you are not looking for perfect matches. You are looking for traces. If the quality is positive, if you see them as powerful, expressive, deeply alive, it may be a part of you that wants to grow, a self that was held back by fear, by conditioning, by the old rule that said, don't be too much. When you feel dazzled by someone's confidence, Jung would tell you that your own unlived confidence is probably standing right behind them, waiting. If the quality is negative, if you see them as needy, cold, controlling, selfish, it may be a part of you that you pushed into the shadow because it was shamed or punished. Maybe your neediness was mocked. Maybe your anger scared someone. Maybe your desire to have control was called bad, so you disowned it, and now it walks toward you wearing someone else's face. The point here is not to accuse yourself. The point is to notice even the smallest echoes, a passing impulse, a fantasy you never act on, a fear that you might secretly be like this. Each echo is a thread that leads back from them to you, and back from obsession to integration. Then add a second question under your list. What do I desperately want from this person that I have not been willing to give myself? Is it attention, validation, permission, protection, tenderness? This question points directly to unmet inner needs, to the places where your own inner parent, inner friend, inner protector have been absent or silent. You may feel resistance here. You may want to close the notebook, to insist that you do not need anything, that you are only trying to understand them. Notice that the discomfort is not failure. It is the exact moment the projection begins to loosen. The energy you bound up in the other person starts to come home. In the next section, I will show you how to respond to what this mirror reveals with compassion instead of self-attack, so your tired heart can soften around these discoveries instead of harden against them. And once that mirror has started to clear, you need a way to stay with what it shows you without collapsing into more rumination. This is where Jung becomes very practical. I want to help you understand a method he developed that could set you free from being constantly dragged around by this inner image of someone. Let's start with a simple idea. You are already daydreaming about them. You are already running scenes, conversations, arguments, reunions in your mind. Active imagination is Jung's way of turning that passive, exhausting daydream into a conscious, guided encounter. In simple terms, active imagination is a waking dream. You do not drift off. You stay awake, observing. You allow images, scenes, and inner figures to unfold, and you relate to them as if they were sitting in the room with you. You are not forcing the story. You are meeting it. Jung understood that the people who appear in your dreams and fantasies are not only about those external individuals, they are also expressions of inner parts of you. So the ex who appears again and again may be carrying your abandoned longing. The unavailable friend might be holding your own distance from yourself. This is crucial to understand because it changes what actually happens when you talk to them inside. So, choose a quiet moment, maybe at night when the house is still, when you find yourself reaching for your phone to check their profile again. Instead, close your eyes. Imagine a safe, neutral space, a simple room, a park bench, a quiet cafe. Invite the person who lives in your mind to sit across from you there. See them arrive in their own time. Notice their posture, their face, the energy you feel in your body as they appear. Then, in your imagination, begin a conversation. Ask them, very directly, "What do you want from me? Why are you here so often? What are you trying to show me?" Then you listen. You do not script their answers. You wait for words or images or sudden feelings that do not seem planned. They might say something that surprises you. They might stay silent, but you feel a wave of shame or anger or tenderness. That, too, is an answer. Remember, you are not summoning the real person. You are not trying to influence their behavior or send them a message. You are meeting the psychic figure that carries your projection, the part of your own soul you placed in their hands without knowing. Afterward, write it down, as if you are transcribing a dream. Capture the phrases, the tone of voice, the emotional texture. Were they hostile, seductive, distant, needy? Did you feel small or powerful or numb? All of this is valuable information about your inner relationship with yourself. And if, at any point, this feels overwhelming or re-traumatizing, it is wise to stop. Open your eyes. Breathe. You can return to it later, perhaps with a therapist who understands Jung's work and can hold the experience with you. In the next section, I will help you begin to interpret what emerges from these dialogues so that this inner conversation becomes a source of guidance, not confusion, and your tired heart can start to feel less alone with its own depths. So now you have these images, these words, these scenes from your inner dialogue. Maybe it feels vivid, maybe it feels vague. I want to help you understand what actually happens when you begin to decode them, very gently, without pressure, without trying to be a perfect interpreter of your own soul. Let's start with something that is crucial to understand. There is no single correct meaning. There's no secret answer key that you are supposed to find. In Jung's view, the meaning lives in how the encounter moves you, in what it stirs in your chest, in the way your body, your breath, your mood quietly shift as you remember what was said. So ask yourself, during that imagined conversation, did you feel small? Did you feel suddenly angry, strangely relieved? Did shame wash over you? Did you feel unexpectedly strong or unexpectedly tender toward yourself or even toward them? These emotional shifts are not side notes. They are the message. When you feel small in the dialogue, that often points to an old power imbalance. Perhaps you are not just speaking with this person, but with a parent who once towered over you, or a teacher, or a partner who held your worth in their hands. When you feel a wave of anger, it may be your system, remembering a boundary that was crossed, a dignity that was not honored. And when warmth or tenderness appears, especially where you did not expect it, it can reveal a deep, unmet longing to be held, to be seen, to finally rest. Notice the exact phrases the inner figure used, the tone, the repeated lines. Very often those words are echoes of childhood, of culture, of past relationships that still live in your mind. Ask quietly, whose voice did that sound like? When have I heard those words before? What part of me believes this, and what part of me does not? Sometimes, the surprise is different. The inner figure is kinder than the real person has ever been. They offer comfort, or wise advice, or a boundary you did not know you were allowed to set. Jung understood this as a glimpse of the self, the deeper organizing center of the psyche, speaking through a symbolic mask. The wisdom is yours, even if it arrives in someone else's face. And here you need a clear distinction. The outer person may never say these things. They may never apologize, never choose you, never change. This inner dialogue is about your psyche, not about predicting their behavior. It is about reclaiming your energy from projection and coming back into relationship with yourself. After each session, write a brief summary. What did I learn about what I need? What did I learn about what hurts? What did I learn about what wants to grow? Even if you feel confused or skeptical, keep going. In Jung's view, what you make up is exactly what reveals your inner world. Over time, as you repeat this, patterns will quietly emerge, and those patterns could set you free. In the next section, we will take these insights and begin to translate them into concrete choices and boundaries, so your tired heart is not only understood, but actively protected in daily life. So now that you've begun to see the pattern, we need something more than insight. We need a small, living ritual, because insight alone rarely loosens the grip. The psyche actually responds to symbols. Jung understood this. He saw that when a pattern is deep, when you find yourself constantly circling someone in your mind, willpower is not enough. You can't just tell yourself to stop. This is crucial to understand. You're dealing with a bond of psychic energy, not just a habit of thought. Let's start with a very gentle ritual of calling your energy back. This is an inner act, not an outer confrontation. You do not need to speak to the real person. You do not need to send a message or make a grand decision. You are working in the quiet space of your own imagination, where, Jung would tell you, the real negotiations of the soul actually happen. If it feels okay, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the person you are fixated on standing a comfortable distance in front of you. Not too close, not too far, just where you can see them clearly without being overwhelmed. Then imagine there are threads of light connecting the two of you. Some from your chest, some from your head, some from your belly. Take your time and simply notice. How many threads are there? Are they thin and wispy, or thick like ropes? Do they tug more at your heart, your throat, your stomach? These impressions matter. They are your psyche, showing you where the relationship has settled inside you, where the projection has taken root. Now, very softly, I want to help you understand how to shift this. Inwardly, say to them, what is mine returns to me now. What is yours I release back to you. Repeat it slowly, as many times as you need, and as you say it, imagine your hands, or your breath, or simply your intention, drawing those threads of light back into your own body. See the threads sliding out of them and returning to you. No violence, no ripping, just a steady, patient gathering. Let the light dissolve into your chest, into a warm glow behind your breastbone. Maybe it feels comforting. Maybe it feels neutral. Maybe you feel nothing at all. All of that is allowed. This is not an act of hostility. It is an act of respect. Respect for yourself and respect for their autonomy. You are no longer asking them, in your mind, to carry your unlived story, your disowned needs, your constant projections. Repeat this ritual daily, especially when you find yourself spiraling into intrusive thoughts. You are training your psyche to turn back inward, again and again. At first, the mind will resist. It will reach for the old drama. That is just the pattern loosening. Over time, watch for small shifts, slightly less intensity, a little more breathing room, moments of unexpected calm when they appear in your mind. In the next sections, we will give this reclaimed energy a new home in very concrete practices of self-care, boundary setting, and honest self-expression, so your heart has somewhere real to rest. So now that a little more space is opening, we have to decide what to do with it. Because if you don't choose, the old pattern will choose for you. Your attention will quietly slip back to them, and the tiredness in your heart will return like a tide. Let's start with this. Your attention is one of your most precious forms of energy. Where it goes, your emotional life follows. Jung understood that psychic energy is not infinite. When you constantly pour it into a single person, a single story, your own inner world goes hungry. Your body goes unheard. Your day-to-day life becomes background noise to the movie in your mind. So what actually happens when you pause, when there is a gap? You finish a task. You sit down on the train. You feel a slight ache in your chest, or a wave of emptiness before sleep. Instantly, almost before you notice, your mind turns toward them. The old conversations, the imagined reunion, the latest silence. It feels automatic because it is. This is crucial to understand. Over years, a habit loop has formed. Discomfort arises. The mind reaches for the familiar story of this person. For a moment, it seems like contact. It seems like comfort. But your heart ends up more tired, not more soothed. The loop completes, and nothing in you is actually cared for. I want to help you understand a different way to meet that moment. A very gentle practice. When you find yourself drifting toward thoughts of them, do not attack yourself. Simply pause and ask, very quietly, what am I actually feeling right now, underneath this story? Ask it like you would ask a child, not a criminal. Then see if you can name the state. Lonely, anxious, bored, ashamed, hopeful, restless, numb. Let the word come slowly. Place a hand on your heart, or on your stomach, or your throat, wherever the feeling seems strongest. Feel the simple contact of your own palm. That physical gesture matters more than you think. Now, offer a short inner response. I see you. I'm here with you. Of course you feel this way. You are turning toward the feeling instead of away from it. Jung would tell you this is how you withdraw a projection. You take back the life you had placed in the other and meet it directly in yourself. From here, invite one very small act of care. A glass of water, a short walk around the block, 3 slow breaths by an open window, a brief stretch, writing 2 or 3 lines in a journal about the feeling you just named. Not to fix it, just to accompany it in the real world. The aim is not to instantly feel better. The aim is to build a new association in your nervous system. Discomfort now leads to inner care, not outer obsession. Over days and weeks, you can quietly track how often you make this shift. Once a day, twice a day, some days not at all. Still, every small redirection is meaningful progress. This is how a tired heart learns it is no longer alone with its pain. There is now a conscious, caring presence within that it can lean on. And as this inner caregiving grows, the emotional charge around that person will begin to soften on its own without forcing it. In the next section, we will deepen this by giving your reclaimed attention specific structures, routines, boundaries, and creative rituals, so your heart has a stable home to return to, again and again. So now that this inner caregiving presence has begun to appear, we need to give it one more tool, a quiet, powerful tool that protects your tired heart from being constantly invaded from within. I want to help you understand the difference between saying no outside and saying no inside. Let's start with outer boundaries. Outer boundaries are about behavior and contact. How often you see someone, what you answer, what you agree to. Sometimes you can reduce contact or even cut it, but sometimes you actually cannot. Not your co-parent, not your boss, not a difficult parent you still depend on in some way. Inner boundaries are different. Inner boundaries are about what you allow to occupy your mental and emotional space. Who gets to walk through your mind at midnight? Whose voice is allowed to narrate your day? This is crucial to understand, because even when outer contact cannot change, your inner access rules can. Jung understood that when someone lives in your head, they are holding a piece of your psychic energy. You may have to email them, sit across from them, share holidays with them, but they do not have to dominate your inner world. You are allowed to decide how much of your inner sky they actually get. To do this, imagine an inner door, right at the edge of your mental space. On one side is your quiet room, your breathing, your life. On the other side are the thoughts, images, and emotional intrusions about this person. You can open this door, you can also close it. So when you find yourself starting the old loop again, notice it as soon as you can. Feel the first sentence of the old story begin. Then, in your mind, gently walk to that door. See yourself placing your hand on the handle. Slowly close it and say, very simply, not now. I will think about this at a time I choose. To reassure your psyche that you are not denying anything, choose that time on purpose. Maybe 15 minutes in the evening. Call it your worry time or your processing time. During that window, you actually invite the thoughts and feelings in. You journal, you reflect, you ask what actually happens in you when this person appears in your imagination. This structure tells your unconscious, I am not abandoning this, I am containing it. And when the psyche feels that, the compulsion to think about them constantly can soften, because it no longer has to fight to be heard. Each time you close the inner door, pair it with a grounding action. Feel your feet on the floor. Name 3 things you can see. Take 3 slow breaths and follow the air all the way out. Bring yourself back to the room you are actually in, the relationship with yourself you are actually building. Your mind may push back at first. It may insist, you must think about them right now, or something terrible will happen. Do not argue. Do not explain. Just repeat your boundary phrase. Not now. At a time, I choose. Again and again, like a calm, firm parent. Over time, this becomes an act of self-respect. You are teaching your psyche that your inner space is not an open field where every intrusive image can roam. It is a home with doors and rooms and privacy. And slowly, you begin to feel something new. An inner privacy, an inner safety. Even if the outer relationship stays complex or unresolved, inside there is a place that belongs only to you. In the next section, we will explore how these inner boundaries do more than just protect you. We will see how they free the energy you've been losing to projection, and how that freed energy supports the deeper Jungian path of individuation, of becoming more fully, quietly, yourself. Those freed inner boundaries open onto something larger. They are not the end of the path. They are the doorway into what Jung called individuation. Let's start with a simple way to say it. Individuation is the slow, honest process of becoming who you actually are, not who your parents needed you to be, not who your culture rewarded, not who someone you loved once projected onto you, but the person who exists when all of those borrowed roles fall quiet. Jung understood that we do not begin life as separate, clear individuals. We begin entangled, fused with a mother, with a family system, with a culture that constantly tells you what is good, what is bad, what is allowed. Later, you may become fused with a partner, or with the idea of a partner, living as if your existence only makes sense in that relationship. This is crucial to understand. Individuation does not mean cutting off from others or becoming cold. It means slowly discovering an inner authority that can stand in the middle of all those voices and say, gently but firmly, "This is me." It is a movement from living through others to living from your own center. And here, projection becomes a guide. When you find yourself constantly seeking yourself in someone else's approval, or collapse when they withdraw attention, or feel that their rejection erases your worth, Jung would tell you that your energy is living outside you. Individuation asks you to notice this, to see what actually happens when your mind runs after them, and to begin reclaiming that energy as yours. This is not selfishness, it is wholeness. It is learning to hold your light and your shadow, your tenderness and your strength, your rational thinking and your irrational longings, your personal history, and the larger, symbolic story of your life in one wider embrace. You become less a fragment, chasing completion in others, and more, a person who can relate from an inner fullness. Often, a tired heart is a sign that this process is underway. The old strategies of finding meaning only in being chosen, needed, praised, or pursued have stopped working. The psyche is exhausted from circling the same outer targets. It is quietly insisting that the source of meaning must move closer to home. So I want to help you understand something. Individuation is not a destination you arrive at and then you are done. It is a lifelong movement. Every time you withdraw a projection, every time you say, "This feeling is mine," even if they triggered it, you take a small, real step on this path. You can imagine, if you like, an inner center, a quiet, steady place within that does not rise and fall entirely with other people's actions or opinions. Jung saw this center as the self, a deeper organizing principle that holds your personality, your dreams, your symbols, your life events in a meaningful pattern that is still unfolding. From this view, your current obsession or heartache is not a meaningless detour. It is part of that unfolding, a painful, insistent invitation to come home to yourself, to relocate your life from their mind back into your own depths. In the next sections, we will make this more concrete. We will look at daily choices, boundaries, and creative acts that align you with this center so that your tired heart can rest in a new kind of strength. For now, you might simply whisper to yourself, "I am allowed to become myself, even if others do not fully understand." And as you whisper that, "I am allowed to become myself," something else begins to stir, very quietly, almost beneath the level of your usual thinking. Jung would say, this is where the self begins to speak. Let's start with this. The deeper center in you rarely shouts. It does not argue with your obsession. It does not wrestle with your anxiety, thought by thought. It speaks in subtler ways, in dreams you wake from and dismiss, in a heaviness in your chest when you go back to the same person, the same story, one more time, in a small, almost fragile sentence inside that says, "This isn't good for me," or "There is more to you than this." I want to help you understand that those quiet sentences are not nothing. They are not just weakness or fear or oversensitivity. They are signals from a deeper layer of your psyche. that actually longs for peace. And this is crucial to understand. The part of you that is obsessed and the part of you that longs for rest are both real. They are both alive in you, but they belong to different levels of your inner life. When you find yourself constantly looping the same conversation, constantly checking your phone, constantly rehearsing what you would say to someone, that is usually the anxious ego trying to solve its pain by thinking harder. When, in the middle of that, another voice says, "Enough," or "Please stop," that is the self, for a moment, breaking through. Dreams are one of the main ways it does this. Around the time of your worst heartache, did you notice recurring symbols? The same house, the same deserted street, the same figure who appears and then walks away. Jung understood that such images are not literal predictions. They are living pictures of your inner situation. A dream of endlessly packing, but never leaving, may be your deeper center, showing you how stuck your energy feels. A dream of missing a train may reflect the life in you that feels left behind while you chase this one relationship. You do not have to decode them perfectly. You can simply ask, what feeling did this dream leave me with? And what part of me might this dream be trying to protect or awaken? Those questions open a door. They turn your attention from the outer person back toward yourself. The self also speaks through what Jung called synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seem to comment on your situation. A book about letting go that falls from a shelf. A phrase about projection you overhear on a bus the very day you decide to stop checking their profile. A symbol you keep seeing again and again when you are most exhausted. You do not need to become superstitious. You are simply cultivating a respectful curiosity toward the patterns of your inner and outer life. One simple practice here is a small Signals of Self notebook. Nothing elaborate. Just a place where you jot down dreams, sudden intuitions, and those odd coincidences that seem connected to your healing. Over time, you may begin to see a thread, a quiet intention moving through your days. Even when you feel most lost in obsession, another layer of your being is quietly working toward wholeness, arranging encounters and insights that could set you free. The more you trust these subtle signals, even a little, the more you feel that you are not alone inside. Something wiser is walking with you. In the next section, we will explore how creative expression can become another channel for this deeper self to speak and to soothe your tired heart, giving shape and color to what words alone cannot hold. So now, I want to help you understand another doorway to this wiser presence inside you, not through more thinking, through creating. Let's start with something Jung understood very deeply. Creativity is not just for artists or for people who make beautiful things. In his view, creativity is actually one of the most natural ways the psyche gives form to what cannot yet be spoken directly. When you feel numb or tired or constantly circling the same story in your mind, it is often because something in you has no shape yet, no image, no color, no place to go. This is crucial to understand. The goal here is not to impress anyone, not to make art to show on social media. The goal is simply to give your inner life a place to move outside of rumination. When you find yourself replaying the same conversation, the same fantasy, the same hurt, you can gently shift that energy into your hands, into the page, into simple symbolic play. You might start with free writing. Take 10 minutes, set a timer, and write, without stopping, about how your heart actually feels. Not how it should feel, how it feels. Let the sentences be messy. Let them contradict themselves. You are not writing literature. You are giving your tired heart a channel to speak without interruption. Or you might draw, not a perfect picture, just abstract shapes that match your mood. Heavy blocks for heaviness, thin lines for anxiety, swirls for confusion, or simply choose colors that fit your emotional weather today. A storm of dark blue, a small spot of yellow you did not know was still there. What actually happens when you do this is that your unconscious begins to show you, in image, what words have been hiding. You can also experiment with symbolic play. On a table or a small tray, gather a few objects: a stone, a cup, a piece of string, a small figure, a leaf. Let one object be you. Let another be the other person who lives in your mind. Another can be your fear. Another, your hope. Place them in relation to each other and notice. Who is too close? Who is pushed to the edge? Who is missing entirely? Then, slowly, move them. Bring your hope closer. Put your fear beside you instead of in front of you. Move the other person a little farther away. As you shift these symbols, you may suddenly see new possibilities, boundaries, or perspectives that were invisible in pure thought. Jung would tell you that this simple arrangement is a living picture of your inner relationship field. Another gentle practice. Write a letter you will never send. Address it to the person who occupies so much space in your mind, or to the younger self who first learned to give your energy away. Say everything that has been held back. The anger, the longing, the gratitude, the disappointment. When you finish, you might fold it and store it in a safe place, or you might destroy it, watching the paper dissolve or burn as a ritual of release. Remember, these acts are not for outer communication. They are for your own psyche. They release pressure. They make space inside so you can breathe again. Even 15 minutes, a few times a week, can become a standing appointment with your inner world. A quiet promise that you will not abandon yourself. Of course, resistance will come. The voice that says, "This is silly. I'm bad at this. It doesn't matter." When that happens, you can simply notice it, thank it for trying to protect you from feeling too much, and continue anyway. Each time you do, you are practicing a new kind of loyalty to your tired heart. Over time, these small creative rituals become more than exercises. They become places where the deeper self whispers through images, words, and gestures, guiding you toward more authentic choices. And as that guidance grows stronger, something else begins to shift. The way you show up with real people in your daily life. In the next section, we will turn back to relationships and explore how this inner work quietly changes the conversations you have, the boundaries you set, and the kind of love you are finally able to receive. And as that inner guidance grows stronger, you begin to notice something that can feel almost unsettling at first. The outside world starts to feel different, the same people, the same conversations, but the atmosphere inside your chest is not the same anymore. Let's start with what actually happens when you withdraw a projection and call your energy back. You are no longer feeding that inner movie where someone else is the main character and you are constantly waiting for their next scene. Jung understood that when the projection loosens, the spell of participation mystique begins to break. You can still care, you can still love, but you are not hypnotized. Early signs are subtle. You reach for your phone and notice there is slightly less urgency to check their messages. You still think of them, but the thoughts move through you instead of crashing over you. There is a little more space between emotional waves, a pause where, before, there was only reactivity. You might even feel a moment of curiosity. What am I feeling right now? What do I need? Instead of only, what are they doing? What does this mean? This is crucial to understand. That tiny pause is your center coming online. In that pause, the person in your mind begins to separate from the actual person. You see them a little more as they are, flawed, complex, human, not the savior of your loneliness, not the villain of your story, just someone with their own history, shadow, and wounds. As this clearer seeing grows, idealization and demonization both begin to soften. You do not have to make them perfect to stay close. You do not have to make them terrible to protect yourself. Instead, you can ask quieter, more grounded questions. How much contact feels right for my nervous system? How much vulnerability feels kind to my tired heart? What pace of relationship actually lets me stay in myself? When you find yourself asking questions like that, new boundaries often arise, almost naturally. You say no a little more often. You stop over-explaining every feeling. You choose not to enter certain conversations that you know will leave you drained for days. You are not punishing anyone. You are simply refusing to abandon yourself again. Jung would tell you, this is individuation in action. You are shifting from living through other people's reactions to living from an inner sense of what is true and kind for you. Some relationships will deepen in this light. As you become more authentic, certain people will meet you there. Others may fade or need to be restructured. Both movements can belong to healing. I want to help you understand how to measure progress here, not by whether you never think of this person again, but by how often your own center feels accessible, trustworthy, available. Ask yourself today, very simply, how would I speak, act, or choose if I trusted that my worth did not depend on their response? Even the smallest shift toward that question matters. Each time you answer it with a tiny action, you are rehearsing a new way of being that honors both your heart and your individuality. And in the next phase of this journey, we will turn more fully toward your outer life itself and explore how to build surroundings, habits, and connections that support this centered way of relating, so your tired heart finally has a stable home to rest in. And as your outer life slowly begins to match this more centered way of relating, something else becomes very clear. There is still that one person who keeps appearing in your mind, the one who seems to live there. Let's start with a very simple but very Jungian idea. When someone lives constantly in your mind, they are not just a person anymore. They have become a carrier. They are carrying something of your own psyche for you, something you have not yet felt able to hold yourself. This is crucial to understand, because until you see that, you will keep believing that thinking about them is about them. Jung understood that obsession is rarely about the actual relationship. It is about an unclaimed feeling, a disowned need, a hidden fear. So the point is not to force yourself to stop thinking about them. That kind of inner violence usually makes the obsession stronger. The point is to gently change the function of those thoughts, from compulsion to curiosity, from rumination to reflection. I want to help you understand how to do that in a very practical way. The next time they appear in your mind, do not rush into the old story. Pause. Feel your body. Name the main emotion that rises first. Is it longing, jealousy, anger, shame? Then quietly ask yourself, what part of me might be hiding behind this emotion? Here is a question that could set you free if you repeat it honestly. What does this person seem to hold for me that I do not feel I can hold for myself? Maybe they feel incredibly confident, and you have never allowed yourself to be that visible. Maybe they seem free, while you have always played the responsible one. Maybe you are obsessed with their anger, because you buried your own anger long ago to keep the peace. Or you idealize their tenderness because you were never allowed to be that soft. When you find yourself circling the same thought about them again, treat it as a mirror, not proof, not destiny, a mirror. Ask, what actually happens when I imagine them this way? Which part of me lights up or collapses or feels very small? This is your shadow material coming to the surface. The unlived life Jung said so often lies behind our neurosis and our tiredness. Of course, resistance will appear here. It can feel frightening to stop blaming them or stop worshiping them and instead see your own projections. You may feel exposed or sad or strangely empty. That is normal. Jung would tell you that this is the moment when real individuation begins. As obsession turns into a mirror, your tired heart no longer has to fight reality. It does not have to chase or defend or endlessly rehearse old scenes. It can begin to learn, to soften, to rest. And in the next part of this journey, we will go one step further. You will not only see what you have projected onto this person, you will learn how to safely call that energy back, piece by piece. So your life, not your obsession, becomes the place where your missing parts finally come home. So now, I want to help you understand a very gentle way to do exactly that. Not in theory, in your actual body, in the quiet space of your own mind, where this person has been living for so long. Let's start with Jung's idea of projection as a kind of scattering. When you find yourself constantly thinking about someone, constantly imagining their reactions, constantly rehearsing conversations, it is as if pieces of your psychic energy have been sent out and left with them. You are here, but parts of you are over there. This is crucial to understand, because calling your energy back is not an attack on them. It is an invitation for those scattered pieces of yourself to come home. So, take a slow breath. If it feels safe, close your eyes. Imagine this person standing in front of you, but at a gentle distance, not looming over you, not turning away, just there. Notice their outline. Notice that they are surrounded by a soft, neutral light. Between your chest and theirs, imagine a stream of energy, like a subtle current, flowing out of you toward them. This is what actually happens when obsession takes over. Your attention, your care, your life force, all flowing one way, outward. As you see that stream, do not judge yourself. Jung understood that this is how the psyche tries to complete an unfinished story. It is trying to heal through another person. But now, for a moment, you will give that story a different path. With your next in-breath, very slowly, imagine the direction of the stream reversing. The same light, the same current, but now it moves back toward your chest. As it returns, silently say inside, "What is mine can return to me now. What is yours can stay with you." Breathe out and let the words settle. Breathe in again and see more of that energy gently re-entering your heart, your lungs, your belly. Notice that you are not cutting them off. You are not slamming a door. You are simply restoring balance. You are allowed to be whole in yourself, even if this relationship is unresolved, even if they remain important, even if you never speak again. Can you feel the difference between cutting and rebalancing? You might be afraid that if you do this, you will stop caring, that the bond will disappear. Jung would tell you that what disappears is the projection, not the real connection. When the fog of fantasy thins, authentic feeling becomes clearer, not weaker. If there is something true between you, it can breathe better, without your entire soul wrapped around it. Try this for a few minutes each day, for at least a week. Notice the subtle shifts, a little less intensity when their name appears, a little less reactivity, when you remember a conversation, a little less tension in your chest or stomach. These are signs that your energy is coming back. Each time you reverse that stream, you are practicing individuation. You are taking responsibility for your own life, your own feelings, your own path toward inner peace. And in the next part, we will explore what you can actually do with this returning energy, so your inner world does not just feel less obsessed, but more deeply alive. So now that some of your energy is coming back to you, we need to look at where it was trapped. And very often, it was trapped in an image of someone, not the living person, the symbol your mind turned them into. Let's start with this. Projection turns people into roles, into heroes and saviors, into enemies and judges, into the one who will finally rescue you, or the one who has ruined your life. Jung understood that when you find yourself constantly circling around someone in your mind, you are rarely relating to their reality. You are relating to a symbol charged with your own hopes and fears. This is crucial to understand, because a tired heart is usually living inside these extremes. One day, you worship them. The next day, you resent them. 1 hour, you feel full of hope, imagining reconciliation or recognition. The next hour, you fall into despair, convinced it is all lost. You long for them, then you hate them, then you long again. That constant swing is exhausting. It is not peace. It is the nervous system trying to regulate around a fantasy. I want to help you understand what actually happens when you begin to see the whole person. Again, not as angel or monster, as human. To do that, I want to guide you through a very simple, very gentle exercise. Take a page and draw a line down the middle. On the left side, write the exaggerated image you carry of this person. Let yourself be honest. Maybe in your story they are perfect, magical, the only one who ever truly saw you. Or maybe they are cruel, heartless, cold, impossibly powerful. Write the words your tired heart secretly uses. Then, on the right side, write small, concrete details you actually know. Not theories, facts. They drink too much coffee. They get anxious before meetings. They forget birthdays. They were cheated on once. They have a sick parent. They shut down when overwhelmed. They grew up poor. They are limited, just like you. Now, slowly read the left column. Feel what your body does when you relate to a symbol. Notice the intensity, the pull, the drama. Then slowly read the right column. Notice how the energy changes when you relate to a human being with habits, flaws, vulnerabilities, and boundaries. Which one feels more inflaming? Which one feels more grounding? Seeing them more clearly does not excuse harmful behavior. It does not mean you minimize what they did or stay in a dangerous relationship. It means you step out of the spell. You stop arguing with an archetype in your head, and you start making real, grounded choices in time and space. Jung would tell you that this is a step in withdrawing projections. As the fantasy dissolves, the psychic energy that was glued to that image slowly returns to you. That same energy can become creativity, new interests, a deeper relationship with yourself. And something else begins to happen. As they become more human in your eyes, you may start to feel more human to yourself. Less perfect, less broken, more real. This doorway out of fantasy is also a doorway into a quieter, deeper peace. In the next part, we will explore how to use this returned energy to build an inner life that can actually hold you, so you no longer need anyone else to be superhuman. As that superhuman image softens, something else comes into view. The one who has been chasing. The one inside you who is exhausted from running. I want to help you understand who that is. Let's start with the shadow again. In Jung's language, the shadow is not only your anger or jealousy. It is also your disowned needs, your unspoken longings, your unlived potentials. Everything that did not feel safe to show as a child often went down there. It did not disappear. It simply moved into the dark and began to speak in indirect ways. One of those ways is obsession. This is crucial to understand. When you find yourself constantly circling around someone in your mind, constantly checking their messages, constantly replaying every word, that is often your shadow trying to be seen without confronting you directly. It uses the image of another person because that feels safer than admitting what you actually need. Think of the times you've chased someone emotionally unavailable. On the surface, you might tell yourself a story about chemistry, timing, or fate. But underneath, there may be a buried belief: I am unworthy of steady love. So you pursue the one who cannot stay, and your tired heart keeps trying to convert their distance into proof that you finally deserve to be chosen. Or notice when you obsess over a powerful person, a boss, a teacher, a charismatic friend. You may feel small beside them and imagine that if they would just approve of you, everything in your life would open. Jung understood that this kind of projection often hides your own disowned strength. The power you admire in them may actually be a capacity in yourself that you were never allowed to inhabit. Then there is the fixation on the critical person, the one whose opinion can ruin your day. What actually happens when you put their voice at the center of your world? You are listening to your inner critic through another human mouth. The cruelty outside mirrors the cruelty inside. The relationship is real, but the intensity of your reaction belongs to an older, deeper wound. So I want to invite you into a brief reflection. If this person magically turned toward you right now and gave you exactly what you want, what would you finally feel? Safe, chosen, powerful, free, forgiven, seen? Let yourself answer slowly. Don't rush past the first word that arises. That final feeling is a clue. It is a doorway into the shadow need. Your obsession is less about this particular person and more about the state of being you are starving for. The tired heart is not only tired of them, it is tired of not being allowed to feel safe, or chosen, or powerful, or forgiven inside your own skin. When you recognize this, there is often grief, a tenderness that hurts. You realize how long you have been chasing this feeling through others instead of learning to cultivate it within yourself. Years of giving your energy away, years of waiting for an external rescuer, while ignoring the quiet one inside who has been asking for the same qualities. And a heart that keeps running after rescuers, while never receiving its own deep need, will eventually collapse, sometimes into numbness, sometimes into despair. Jung would tell you this is a sign not of failure, but of a psyche that can no longer maintain the old pattern. We are not going to leave you there. In the next sections, we will explore how to begin offering to yourself, in small and realistic ways, the very qualities you have been seeking in someone else, so your heart can finally rest where it actually lives, within you. And for your heart to rest within you, it needs something very simple, but very rare. It needs you to be able to stay with what you feel, not rush away, not attack someone, not attack yourself. Jung understood that much of our suffering does not actually come from the feeling itself, but from our inability to hold the tension it creates. A wave rises in you, and instantly your mind wants to discharge it. You act, you text, you blame, you scroll, you numb. Anything, as long as you do not have to sit in that charged space between impulse and action. This is crucial to understand. When you cannot bear that inner tension, you are constantly pushed outward, into projection, into old story, into relationships that repeat the same pattern. Your tired heart is not just tired from feeling, it is tired from being whipped around by every uncontained emotion. So let's start with a different possibility: emotional containment. In simple terms, containment means this: you stay with a feeling long enough to actually understand it, without exploding, collapsing, or shutting down. The feeling is there. You are there. And instead of becoming the feeling, you hold it. What actually happens when you do this? You begin to grow an inner container, a sense of yourself that is bigger than any single emotion. Jung would tell you this is part of individuation, the ego learning to stand in the presence of the unconscious without being flooded by it. I want to help you understand this in a very practical way, a 3-step practice. First, name the feeling in plain language: sad, angry, scared, jealous, lonely. Not a story about why, just the word. Second, locate it in your body. Is it a tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, a burning in your throat, a heaviness behind your eyes? Third, breathe into that exact place for 10 to 20 slow breaths, without trying to fix, argue with, or analyze it. At first, you will want to escape. Your mind will reach for someone, for the old narrative. When you find yourself doing that, gently return to the body and the breath. You are learning to cup your hands around a small inner flame. This is not suppression. Suppression blows the flame out or hides it in the basement. Containment protects it, so it can burn steadily, instead of either disappearing or burning the whole house down. Imagine a concrete moment. Your anxiety spikes because they have not replied. Normally, you would reach for your phone or reread old messages or invent a new story about what this means. Tonight, you pause. You sit. You place a hand on the part of your body that feels the most activated. Maybe your chest, maybe your gut. You breathe and you say softly inside, "I feel you. I am not going to abandon you." Stay there. 10 breaths. 20 breaths. Notice how the wave changes shape when it is held instead of acted out. The situation outside has not changed, but your relationship to your own energy has. Your inner world becomes a little less like a battlefield and a little more like a held space. Over time, this could set you free. Start with smaller emotions first: mild irritation, a brief pang of envy, a flicker of disappointment. Build your capacity slowly, like training a muscle. As you do, even the big feelings that used to trigger obsession and panic can be met with more calm, and your tired heart begins to learn something new. Emotions rise and fall, and you are still here between the waves. In the next section, we will deepen this by exploring how to speak with these feelings, not just hold them, so your inner life becomes a true dialogue instead of a constant storm. So now, instead of being tossed around inside the storm, we begin to speak with what lives inside it. Not abstractly, very concretely, through what Jung called active imagination. Let's start with a simple distinction. Daydreaming is when the image runs you. Active imagination is when you consciously enter into a relationship with that image. You are not just watching a movie in your mind anymore. You are sitting down with someone from that movie and asking why they are there. Jung developed this as a way to meet the unconscious directly. He understood that your psyche does not only speak in concepts, it speaks in images, in characters, in inner figures that feel as real as actual people. And when you find yourself constantly thinking about someone, constantly replaying their words, that inner figure is already active. You're already in a kind of conversation, but it is one-sided and exhausting. This is crucial to understand. In active imagination, the person in your mind becomes symbolic. They are not the real ex, or the real friend, or the real crush. They are a doorway, a living symbol of your own needs, fears, hopes, and history. If you confuse this inner figure with the literal person, you stay trapped in projection. If you treat them as a symbol, the same image could set you free. So I want to help you understand how to do this in a gentle, simple way. You sit quietly, perhaps at night, when the world is softer and the noise has faded. You close your eyes and you imagine this person in a neutral, safe place, a park bench, a quiet room, a train station where time has stopped. Not dramatic, just simple and still. Then you wait. You let them speak first in your imagination. You do not censor what they say. You do not make them polite. You simply notice what actually comes. Are they angry, cold, needy, tender? Do they accuse you, or beg you, or ignore you completely? Their words show you what your own psyche believes. Now you answer, not from what you think you should say, not from the persona that wants to be impressive or kind, from your true feelings in that moment. You can even ask them, very directly, what do you want from me? What do you bring me that I don't give myself? And then you listen again. What happens when you dare to ask that? Remember, the goal is not to rehearse a real conversation. You are not predicting the future. You are discovering hidden beliefs, secret bargains, buried conflicts inside yourself that have been projected onto this figure. The person in your mind becomes a mirror, reflecting your unlived life. When you finish, write the dialogue down, every line. Underline any phrase that surprises you, any emotion that feels disproportionate. These are often messages from the unconscious about what needs attention, protection, or care. At first, this may feel strange, maybe even artificial, but with repetition, it becomes a powerful way to move from helpless obsession into creative engagement with your inner world. And in the next section, we will look at how to work with what you discover there, so that these inner conversations begin to change how you actually live, love, and choose in the outer world. And as those inner conversations begin to shift your outer life, another question appears. How do you protect this new, fragile space in your heart so it does not get exhausted all over again? Let's start with something simple and yet very confronting. A tired heart is often a boundaryless heart, a heart that takes in too much, gives too much, stays too open to someone who cannot or will not meet it with care. You say yes when your whole body is saying no. You answer immediately when you actually need time. You offer tenderness to people who consistently offer you confusion. This is crucial to understand. The answer is not to become hard, cold, or unreachable. Jung understood that walls are not the same as boundaries. Walls shut everything out. They keep out harm, but they also keep out nourishment. Boundaries are different. Boundaries allow contact, but protect what is tender and essential inside you. They say, you may come this close, but not closer than my soul can bear. Jung would tell you that one of the most powerful forms of boundary is psychological distance. Even when you cannot remove someone from your life, you can change how much inner space they occupy. You can stop rehearsing every possible conversation with them. You can stop checking their digital traces, as if your worth depended on the last seen time. You can stop offering your most vulnerable stories to a person who has not earned that level of access. When you find yourself constantly reaching for your phone to see if they replied, that is a moment to experiment. What actually happens when you delay your response by an hour or an afternoon? Notice the anxiety, the urge, the story that says, if I don't respond now, they will leave. Sit with that story instead of obeying it. This could set you free. Another experiment is to limit how often you look at their social media. Choose a specific time, once a day or once a week, And outside that window, you do not check. You let your mind detox. You also schedule a small, contained time for reflection about this relationship. Instead of all-day rumination, 10 minutes with a journal in the evening, rather than 10 hours of mental spinning. You can also practice sharing less, not lying, not pretending, simply offering less vulnerable material to people who have not shown consistent care. You keep the deeper layers for those who have demonstrated that they can hold them. As you do this, something important happens. You begin to feel where you end and others begin. This is individuation in daily life. By defining your edges, you create the conditions to discover who you actually are, apart from their reactions, apart from your own projection and fantasy. Of course, guilt and fear will arise. If you have survived by people-pleasing, any boundary can feel like cruelty. You may think, I am abandoning them. Notice that. Name it as an old pattern being challenged. Each small boundary is an act of loyalty to your own soul. Over time, that loyalty teaches your heart that it is finally safe enough to rest. And in the next section, we will go deeper into the guilt and grief that surface here, and how Jung would guide you through them without collapsing back into self-abandonment. And when you begin to set those small boundaries, something else often rises up in the quiet that follows. Loneliness, a strange, aching emptiness, a sense that without this person or this relationship, your inner world feels unbearably hollow. Let's start with that. With the nights where you lie awake and it feels like your entire mind is orbiting around one person who is not there. You replay conversations. You imagine future scenes. You feel the absence almost like physical pain. It can be consuming. It can make you feel as if your whole life is measured by the distance between you and them. I want to help you understand that Jung would not treat this as a trivial problem of attachment. Jung understood that such intense longing actually has a spiritual dimension. It is not only about this one someone. It points beyond them. It points toward a deeper hunger in you for meaning, for connection, for a sense of inner wholeness that no single relationship can fully supply. This is crucial to understand. When you find yourself constantly thinking, why don't I have them? Why can't I be with them? Your mind is asking one question, but your soul may be asking another. The deeper question sounds more like, what am I really starving for? Where in my life do I feel exiled from belonging, from purpose, from aliveness? What actually happens when we ignore that deeper question is that we compress the entire call of the soul into the narrow image of one person. You might chase the perfect partner when what you truly crave is a circle of people where you feel seen and held. You might chase status or recognition when the real ache is for basic self-respect. You might cling to constant drama because in that chaos, you briefly feel awake, while underneath you are simply yearning to feel vividly alive in your own skin. Jung would tell you that this misreading of the signal is a kind of projection. The unlived life inside you, the disowned desires, the silenced creativity, all get projected onto another person, as if they were the only doorway to your fulfillment. No wonder your heart feels so tired. All that energy is trying to move, but it has only one target, and that target keeps slipping away. So tonight, I want to invite you into a different kind of question. Take your journal and gently ask yourself, if this person disappeared from my life completely, what kind of life would I need to build so that my heart could still feel full? Not as a threat, as an opening. What daily relationships, what work, what creativity, what sacredness would need to exist so that your inner world felt inhabited and meaningful. When you listen to longing as a messenger rather than a tormentor, your relationship to it begins to shift. You move from chasing to creating, from waiting for one person to save you, to slowly shaping a life that answers your deeper call. And this is how a tired heart begins to heal, not only when the outer situation changes, but when your longing is given a path, not just a target. In the next section, we will explore how to walk that path without abandoning your human need for love, so that your search for someone finally includes a search for yourself. And yet, there's another way a tired heart responds, not with longing, not with tears, but with almost nothing at all. Let's start with this quiet form of suffering. You wake up, you go to work, you answer messages, you sit with people, you say the right things. On the surface, your life is functioning. Inside, it feels flat. You are present but not really here. You are moving but not really moved. It is as if someone turned the volume down on your own soul. I want to help you understand that this absence of feeling is not proof that you do not care. It is not proof that you are empty. Jung understood that when the psyche has been overloaded for too long, it does not always explode. Sometimes it shuts down. When there has been too much unprocessed grief, too much conflict, too much projection, the system quietly pulls the plug on feeling as a last attempt to preserve stability. This is crucial to understand, because otherwise you will call yourself cold, broken, heartless. But numbness is not a moral issue. It is a protective strategy. The heart closes when it believes it cannot safely feel what is there. When you find yourself scrolling endlessly, staring at a wall, saying, "I'm fine," while sensing that nothing touches you, your psyche is actually trying to keep you from being flooded. What actually happens when this goes on for months or years is that you lose your relationship to your own inner life. The shadow grows heavier, full of unspoken anger, unlived desire, tears that never had a witness. The energy it takes to keep all of that down is enormous. So there is little left for joy, for curiosity, for simple presence. You are not lazy. You are managing an invisible weight. So we do not rip the defenses away. We do not demand that the heart feel everything at once. Instead, we begin a very small practice of resensitizing. Once a day, just once, you pause and ask, what am I feeling right now? Physically, emotionally, even if it is only 1%. Maybe it is a tightness in your throat, a heaviness in your chest, a faint irritation, a tiny spark of relief. Name it, softly, without a story. Approach this numbness the way you would sit beside a tired friend who has gone quiet after too much stress. You would not shout at them to wake up. You would not accuse them of not caring. You would stay close. You would be curious. You would let silence be shared until a single word appears. Each time you do this, you are sending a message inward. It is a little safer now. You can feel just this much, not everything, just this. Over time, the psyche learns that it does not have to choose between total shutdown and emotional chaos. It can open in small, manageable doses. And this is where inner peace begins to grow again. Not as a dramatic breakthrough, but as a slow, steady trust that you can survive your own feelings. In the next section, we will look at how to create outer relationships that honor this fragile reopening, so you are not constantly pushed back into numbness by old patterns. And as that fragile trust begins to grow, another pattern, quietly, shows itself. The person you can't stop thinking about, the one who seems to live in your mind. It is not only their image that stays. It is a voice, a harsh, constant commentary on your worth, your choices, your desirability. You might think you are simply thinking about them, replaying what they said, what they didn't say. But I want to help you understand what actually happens when someone lives there this intensely. Very often, the inner critic has borrowed their face. It has taken their tone. It speaks as if it were them. Of course they pulled away. You're too much. No one would really choose you. You ruined it again. And this is crucial to understand. That voice is usually older than this relationship. It often started with a parent who was never satisfied, a teacher who shamed you, a first love who withdrew affection when you were most open. Jung understood that the psyche recycles old figures. The critic takes pieces of your past, blends them with your current obsession, and then uses that mixture as fuel for self-attack. So when you find yourself lying awake, hearing what you imagine they think of you, pause and ask, very simply, whose voice is this really? Does it actually sound like them? Or like my mother on a bad day? My father when he was disappointed? A part of me that is never, ever satisfied with myself? Let's start with a small, concrete exercise. Take a page. Write down 3 or 4 of the most common critical thoughts that appear when you think of this person. Don't edit, just catch them as they are. Then, next to each one, give it a name. Inner critic. Not truth, not prophecy, not their verdict on your value. Just inner critic speaking. This simple act already shifts your energy. You are no longer inside the attack. You are observing it. Then add a second step. For each line of criticism, write a gentle response, as if you were speaking to a dear friend. You're too much becomes you are intense, and people who can meet that intensity exist. No one would really choose you becomes some people have not chosen you, but that is not the same as being unworthy. You may not believe these counter-statements yet. That is all right. You are practicing a new inner relationship. As you do this, the obsessive loop begins to weaken. You start to see what belongs to your own history and what actually belongs to this present connection. Maybe this person was unclear or unkind. Maybe they were simply limited, but they were not the author of every cruel sentence your mind now repeats. In Jung's language, you are meeting a piece of your shadow. The critic is part of you, but not the whole truth about you. When you can recognize it as a part, you can relate to it, question it, and slowly soften its grip on your tired heart. In the next section, we will explore how to meet this inner critic at the level of your body and daily habits, so that your nervous system no longer treats every text, silence, or glance as a verdict on your worth. Now we turn toward something quieter, but very powerful. The way you begin to treat yourself when no one is watching. The way you respond to your own tired heart in the small, ordinary moments of the day. Let's start with the longing underneath the obsession. Earlier, you saw that behind this one person, living in your mind, there is usually a very specific feeling you are hungry for. To be chosen, to be protected, to be admired, understood, or forgiven. This is crucial to understand, because without naming that feeling, you keep chasing the person instead of the quality your soul actually needs. Jung understood that no amount of inner work replaces real, living relationships. You still need other people. You still need touch, conversation, shared life. But he also saw that when you build a steady inner relationship with yourself, the desperation around any one person softens. You are not begging one door to open because you are no longer standing outside in the cold. So, I want to help you understand this in a very practical way. Tonight, or sometime this week, choose one quality you most wanted from them. Just one. Maybe it was gentleness, maybe it was focused attention, maybe it was encouragement, or the sense that someone would protect you no matter what. Hold that word in your mind for a moment. Notice what happens in your body when you say it. Then, quietly, you begin to offer that quality to yourself, not as a grand performance, as 3 or 4 small, almost invisible acts. If you longed for gentleness, you speak to yourself kindly after a mistake instead of attacking. When you find yourself replaying a conversation, you say, "Of course you're anxious. This mattered to you." And you place a hand on your chest. If you longed for protection, you schedule time for rest and actually defend it, as if you were guarding a beloved child. If you longed to be admired, you celebrate small wins out loud. You say, "I handled that meeting well," or "It was brave to send that message," even if no one else notices. If you long to be understood, you write a letter of understanding to your younger self, describing what actually happened, what you felt, what you needed, but did not receive. This is not sentimental. This is you reclaiming your own story and your own psychic energy. What actually happens when you repeat these things is different from one dramatic breakthrough. The nervous system learns through repetition, not intensity. One small act of inner loyalty every day does more for your tired heart than a single night of cathartic tears. You are teaching yourself, slowly but constantly, "I will not abandon you again." Jung would tell you that you are forming an inner partner, an inner friend. Over time, as you become someone you can rely on, the magnetic pull toward external rescuers often loosens. You can still love, still grieve, still hope, but you do not collapse when someone turns away. And this is not about closing your heart. It is about creating a steadier base inside, so that in the next section, when we look at how you relate to others in real time, you can stay present without losing yourself. So from that steadier base inside, I want to help you understand something else. Your tired heart is not just a malfunction, it is also a message. Jung understood that symptoms, crises, and emotional collapses are rarely meaningless. He saw them as the psyche's way of saying, "I cannot go on like this." What actually happens when you feel obsessed, numb, or completely exhausted is not just failure. It is often a turning point trying to announce itself. Let's start with this idea. Your psyche is oriented toward wholeness, even when it looks chaotic, even when you feel like you are constantly breaking down. There is often a purposive movement underneath. Jung would tell you that a neurosis can arise from unlived life, from values you have betrayed, from needs you have silenced for too long. So when you find yourself replaying conversations, checking your phone, or drifting into emotional numbness, ask quietly, "What is this for?" Not in a harsh way, in a curious way. What old way of relating, of loving, of abandoning yourself is this pain refusing to support anymore? You might notice, for example, that this relationship obsession has exposed a pattern of self-betrayal. Maybe you constantly agree, constantly adapt, constantly shrink, just to keep someone close. Or you might see, with new clarity, a deep need for authenticity. You can no longer tolerate being the easy one, the strong one, the one who has no needs. For someone else, this heartbreak might awaken spiritual questions. Why am I here? What do I actually value? Why does it hurt so much to be unseen? For another person, the meaning might appear as the discovery of boundaries, the realization that your energy is not an endless resource to be spent on every projection, every fantasy, every demand. This is crucial to understand. Meaning does not erase pain. It does not make the loss less real. But meaning can hold pain. When your suffering is woven into a coherent story of growth, your heart often finds more strength to continue because it is no longer just, I am broken. It becomes, I am in the middle of something important. So I invite you to write a short, compassionate narrative of your journey so far. Not a legal document, not an attack on anyone else. A story that says, this is where I began. This is how I learned to leave myself. This is how my heart finally protested. Frame yourself not as a failure, but as someone in transition, someone whose psyche is actually trying to move toward greater wholeness. And as you begin to see this, a quiet shift can happen. You are no longer just surviving a disaster. You are walking through a passage. In the next sections, I will help you look ahead, how to take this new understanding into your daily relationships, and how to let your heart slowly rebuild trust in life, one real moment at a time. So now we turn from insight to rhythm, from understanding the passage you are in, to the small, steady steps that help you walk it. Your tired heart does not only need big realizations, it needs gentle repetition. Jung understood that the psyche responds deeply to rhythm and ritual, not grand ceremonies, but simple, almost unnoticed movements repeated over time. This is crucial to understand. Your nervous system is constantly scanning for danger or safety. When you give it predictable, kind rituals, you are telling yourself, again and again, I am here. I will not abandon you. Let's start with the morning. Before you look at your phone, before you enter anyone else's story, take 2 minutes for a quiet check-in. Sit or lie comfortably. Place one hand on your heart. Feel the warmth, the weight, the contact. Take 5 slow breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Count them if it helps, and then softly ask, what part of me needs kindness today? You are not forcing an answer, you are listening. Maybe a single word appears in your mind. Tired, angry, hopeful. Maybe you see a small image, a child, a gray sky, a doorway. Just notice it. You might write that word or image in a notebook, or type it in a note on your phone. That tiny act of recording says to your unconscious, I heard you. In the evening, you close the circle. Before sleep, review the day, not as a judge, but as an observer. Ask yourself, when did my heart feel tight today? When did it feel a little more open? You may remember a text that made your chest clench, or a walk where your shoulders dropped and your breath deepened. You are tracking patterns, not scoring performance. Over time, this could set you free from the vague sense that you are always anxious or never safe, because you begin to see nuances. I want to help you understand another small but powerful ritual. Choose a simple object to carry with you. A stone, a ring, a bracelet. Let it symbolize your commitment to calling your energy back from constant projection and obsession. Jung would tell you that symbols bridge conscious and unconscious. So when you find yourself spiraling into someone else's mind, touch the object. Feel a texture. Quietly say, come back, stay with yourself. You are not fighting the thought. You are redirecting your relationship to it. Once a week, give yourself a soul hour. 60 minutes where you are not available to anyone's demands. You might journal, letting your hand move without censoring. You might draw shapes or colors that match your mood. You might walk slowly in nature, paying attention to images that arise. A broken branch, new leaves, moving water. This is how the unconscious actually speaks, through pictures, sensations, and sudden insights. All of these practices are Jungian in spirit, because they honor inner life through symbols and regular attention, not sheer willpower. And they are not about perfection. You will miss mornings. You will forget your stone. You will skip your soul hour. That is not failure. That is another chance to practice the real message. I return. I come back. I will not leave myself out in the cold. In the next part, we will take this even further and look at how to meet your most painful triggers in relationships without abandoning your center again. And sometimes, coming back to yourself means coming back to a kind of funeral. Not a dramatic one, a quiet one. The slow, almost invisible funeral of an image in your mind. The version of this person you carried like a secret treasure. The version of yourself you thought you could finally become, if only this relationship worked out. This is crucial to understand. When the projections begin to withdraw, when you start to see what actually happened, there is often a deeper sorrow than you expected. You are not only grieving someone, you are grieving a whole story, a future that never fully existed, except in your imagination, and yet your heart invested real energy in it. So the loss feels real, because it is. Jung understood that grief is not a mistake in the psyche, it is a passage. He would say that for transformation to happen, something in you must die. A dream, an identity, a way of loving that was built on fusion and fantasy, rather than reality. When you find yourself exhausted and numb, part of that tiredness is the weight of what you are still trying to keep alive inside your mind. Let's start with making a simple distinction. There are two layers of loss here. The first is what actually happened, or did not happen, with this person. The messages they did not answer, the commitment they never made, the empathy they could not offer. The second is more subtle, the imagined life you built around them, the conversations you never had but rehearsed, the trips you planned only in your head, the version of yourself who would finally feel chosen, secure, worthy. I want to help you understand that both layers deserve mourning. If you only focus on the concrete events, you may think you are over it while the fantasy still lives, untouched, in the background. And if you only grieve the fantasy, you may avoid facing the real limitations of this person and your real pain with them. So I want to invite you into a small ritual of farewell, not dramatic, not performative, just honest. Take a page and write a letter, not only to them, but to the image. Address the projection directly. You can write, to the version of you I carried in my mind, to the future I thought we would have. Thank it for what it gave you: hope, excitement, direction, a reason to wake up when life felt flat. Then gently acknowledge, you cannot carry me forward anymore. You might notice waves after this: sadness, anger, emptiness. You may question yourself, was any of it real? Why did I hold on so long? Jung would tell you that feeling these emotions consciously is far less exhausting than constantly clinging to a fading image. What actually happens when you allow the wave to move through is that some of your energy returns from the past to the present. To mark this, create a small symbolic act. Close a box with their letters after placing one hand on it in gratitude. Scroll through your old messages. Pause on a few that once meant everything. Whisper thank you, then delete. Or quietly move a photo from your bedside to a drawer. These are not acts of cruelty. They are acts of inner order. You are telling your psyche, I choose reality. I choose today. As the image slowly fades, space opens. At first it may feel like a hollow ache, but that emptiness is not failure. It is cleared ground. The part of your heart that was constantly occupied with what never fully was can now begin to notice other things: a forgotten interest, a creative impulse, a new kind of connection that does not demand you abandon yourself. In the next section, we will step onto that cleared ground together and look at how to meet new relationships from this quieter center, so that your heart does not have to repeat the same old story. And as that quieter center begins to appear, something else begins to happen that is easy to miss. Inner peace does not usually arrive like a thunderstorm. It arrives like a change in the air. You only notice if you pause and actually feel it. Let's start with this. Healing rarely shows up as, "I am finally cured. I will never obsess again." It shows up as a moment, a small gap, a softening. You still think about them, but maybe for 5 minutes less. You still feel the pull to check your phone, but there is a tiny space before you reach for it. That space is not nothing. That space is new. I want to help you understand how important these small spaces are. When you find yourself realizing, an hour later, that you did not stalk their profile this morning, that is a glimpse of inner peace. When the spiral starts, but you catch it at the third thought instead of the 30th, that is a glimpse. When you speak to yourself with a little less cruelty after a hard day, that is a glimpse. These are not accidents. They are evidence. This is crucial to understand because your tired heart has been trained to only respect big dramas and big emotions. Quiet improvement does not feel dramatic. It feels almost boring. So you tell yourself, "Nothing is changing. I am still the same." But what actually happens when you say that is, you erase the subtle work your psyche is constantly doing on your behalf. Jung understood that individuation unfolds slowly through countless small acts of awareness, a moment of self-reflection instead of self-attack, a boundary you keep even if your voice shakes, a decision to stay with your own feeling for 30 seconds longer before escaping into a projection. Each of these is a step toward becoming more fully yourself, even if the old pain still flares. To help your mind respect this slow work, you can keep a very simple log, not a perfect journal, just a few lines in your phone or on a page. Today, the obsession faded faster. Today, I felt curious about my own life for 10 minutes. Today, I noticed I was lonely instead of chasing someone. Over time, this becomes a visible record that your inner landscape is changing, even on days when you feel stuck. Because there will be those days. Days when the obsession feels as strong as ever, when you are convinced you have gone backwards. Jung would tell you, this is not failure. This is the spiral. You circle back to the same themes, but at a slightly different level of awareness. The feeling is old. You are not. You are bringing a new consciousness to an old pattern. Imagine for a moment your heart as a tired but living garden. The soil has been overworked by constant storms of thought and emotion. Yet if you look closely, you can see tiny shoots appearing. A small interest, a new boundary, a breath of self-compassion. Your task now is to notice them, to water them with attention, to protect them from the harsh inner weather of contempt and impatience. As we move into the final part of this journey, we will look at how to live from this garden, how to build relationships and daily rhythms that honor these new shoots, so that your heart can be both sensitive and strong, rooted in a peace that grows quietly, but does not easily vanish. So now, as we stand here in this garden you have begun to tend, we need to turn back and listen to the one who called you here in the first place. Your tired heart, the part of you that has been whispering and then crying out through exhaustion and numbness, and that quiet sense that life has somehow lost its color. Let's start with how Jung would describe what you have been living. He would not just call it stress or burnout. He would speak of psychic exhaustion, of a loss of meaning that leaves you moving through your days like someone walking underwater. of emotional numbness that makes even joy feel distant, like a story you are watching instead of a reality you can actually touch. When you find yourself staring at your phone, unable to care about messages you once would have obsessed over. When you notice that even the people you love feel far away, as if there is glass between you and them. When you move from task to task with no inner yes, just a dull obligation. This is crucial to understand. Your heart has not been failing you. It has been sending signals that your way of living is no longer aligned with your deeper self. Jung understood that so much of this tiredness comes from what you push into the shadow. All the anger you are not allowed to feel, all the grief you postpone, all the needs you label as too much. They do not disappear, they sink, and holding them down constantly costs you an enormous amount of energy. Then, on top of that, there is projection, the way someone lives in your mind, rent-free, carrying your hopes, your fears, your unspoken longings. What actually happens when you fixate on them is that you are trying to meet your own unlived life through a relationship in your imagination. Your heart grows tired because it is working overtime in a world that does not quite exist. Your inner child has been there too, underneath all of this. The watchful one, the one who learned to stay small, to be pleasing, to disappear into caretaking. And anima, or animus, that inner opposite, has been calling you toward a fuller range of feeling and strength, even as you cling to old roles. All of this has been part of individuation, the long, uneven path of becoming yourself. So no, you are not weak. You are not broken. You are unfinished. Your symptoms have been meaningful messages from the psyche, saying, "Please, stop abandoning yourself. I want to help you understand that the remaining steps in this journey are about gathering these threads into something simple and livable, a way of being where your shadow is less feared, your projections are gently reclaimed, your inner child is protected, and your relationships grow from a quieter center." In the next sections, we will shape this into daily rhythms and clear inner attitudes so that your heart does not have to shout through exhaustion anymore, but can finally rest and be heard in a softer voice. So as that softer voice begins to appear, something else becomes possible. You can start to see that your life has not been a pile of disconnected crises, but a single movement, one long conversation between your tired heart and your deeper self. Let's start with how Jung understood this. He saw a human life as a process of individuation, not a race to become successful, not a straight line of achievements, but a gradual becoming more whole, more yourself, through encounters with your own depths, especially the ones you did not choose. This is crucial to understand. Individuation is not neat. It does not look spiritual from the outside. It often looks like heartbreak, like burnout, like obsession, like emotional numbness. Jung would tell you that these are not proof that you failed. They are signs that something in you is trying, constantly, to come into the light. Think about the times your heart broke over someone who could not meet you. On the surface, it was just a relationship ending. But what actually happens when you look from the inside? A part of you that longed for real contact, discovered where it could not be found. A deeper standard for love quietly appeared. Think about the seasons when one person lived in your mind all day. You replayed messages, imagined conversations, watched their projection walk through every room of your life. From a Jungian view, that obsession was a chapter in which an unlived part of yourself was trying to get your attention, using their image as a hook. Then there were the stretches of burnout, when you could not care the way you used to. Work, caretaking, even spiritual practice felt dead. It seemed like laziness or failure. But seen as one path, that chapter might be the moment your energy refused to keep serving a life that had no space for your soul. And the numb times when you felt like a stranger in your own body. No tears, no joy, just a gray middle. Jung understood this as a kind of protective frost, the psyche saying, "I will shut down feeling until you are ready to listen differently." I want to help you understand how powerful it is to place all of these moments on a single inner path. You might even close your eyes later and imagine a road stretching behind you. Along that road, place the breakup, the obsession, the burnout, the numbness. At each point, ask quietly, when you find yourself there again in memory, what was my tired heart trying to say here? Not, what did I do wrong? But, what was trying to be born in me? What was no longer bearable? What new truth about myself was pushing through? As you do this, you are already individuating. You are gathering scattered scenes into one coherent story, and that alone could set you free from so much shame. If it helps, you can repeat a simple sentence as you walk that inner path. Nothing was wasted. My heart has been leading me, even when I didn't understand. In the next section, we will turn this into a daily practice so that your story continues on with more clarity and much less exhaustion. So now, I want to help you understand how to carry that sentence with you in a simple, living way. When your heart is tired, you need something clear, something you can return to when your mind is racing and your energy is low. Let's start with a gentle map, not a rigid system. A map with 4 Jung-inspired pillars you can lean on again and again. Listening to the tired heart, meeting the shadow, reclaiming projections, and walking the path of individuation. You have already touched each of these in your own story. Now we name them so you can recognize where you are. The first pillar is listening to the tired heart. This is crucial to understand. Your exhaustion is not just about sleep or stress. Jung understood it as psychic exhaustion, the cost of living too far from your own center. Listening means you pause the constant analysis of someone else, and you turn that same attention inward. You notice where your chest tightens, where your breath shortens, where a quiet grief sits under the surface. When you find yourself replaying conversations, you ask instead, what is my heart actually asking for right now? The second pillar is meeting the shadow. That is all the feelings, needs, and impulses you pushed away to survive. The anger you swallowed, the longing you called too much, the fear you hid behind competence. When these are left in the dark, they leak out as anxiety, obsession, and numbness. Meeting the shadow doesn't mean you act everything out. It means you sit with it, you name it, you admit, yes, this lives in me. Jung would tell you that every time you do this, a piece of your lost energy comes home. The third pillar is reclaiming projections. We explored what actually happens when one person lives rent-free in your mind. You are often relating to a story, a symbol, a part of yourself you have placed onto them. Reclaiming projection means you gently ask, what am I seeing in this person that belongs to me? What quality, what wound, what hope? This is not about blaming yourself. It is about understanding that your mind is showing you yourself through the image of another. The fourth pillar is walking the path of individuation. This is Jung's word for becoming who you actually are, not who you were trained to be. It is slow. It is lifelong. It is the process of weaving your tired heart, your shadow, and your reclaimed projections into one more honest, grounded self. You will not walk this path in a straight line. You will circle back, repeat lessons, forget, remember, You do not need to master all 4 pillars at once. Even spending a season simply listening to your tired heart can change every relationship in your life. In the next section, we will turn each pillar into a small daily practice so that this map becomes more than an idea and your inner life becomes a place you can actually rest. So let's start with that first pillar and bring it down into your actual day, not as a big spiritual ideal, as something you can do in 30 seconds, in the middle of a hallway, in the car, or lying awake at night. The practice is simple. Place one hand on your chest. Let your shoulders drop. Breathe in slowly to a count of 4 and out to a count of 6. And then, without forcing anything, silently ask, "Heart, what are you tired of?" You are not demanding an answer. You are opening a door. This is crucial to understand, because your tired heart has probably learned that no one really wants to hear it. Sometimes nothing comes, just blankness, numbness. When you find yourself in that blank space, stay with the breath and the hand on your chest for 3 more slow cycles. Then you gently add, "If you could speak, what would you say?" Jung understood that the unconscious does not like to be pushed, but it responds to sincere invitation. You are teaching your inner life that you will wait. Often, what comes first are surface complaints. "I'm tired of my boss. I'm tired of my phone. I'm tired of being the responsible one." These are not wrong. They are just the outer layer. The mind will want to stay there, building a whole story about someone else, about circumstances, about how everything would be fine if they finally changed. What actually happens when you stop there is that your energy stays externalized. You never reach the deeper message. If you stay curious, another voice begins to appear underneath. "I am tired of saying yes when I mean no. I am tired of never being allowed to rest. I am tired of pretending I'm not hurt." Now you are closer to the truth. Jung would tell you that this is where the unlived life starts to speak, where your needs, your boundaries, your shadow begin to show themselves, not as a theory, but as a felt ache in your chest. From this perspective, tiredness and numbness stop being enemies you must overcome. They become invitations, invitations to slow down, to simplify, to listen. Instead of pushing through with more coffee, more scrolling, more self-attack, you experiment with pausing for 1 minute and placing that hand on your heart. You let the exhaustion be information, not a verdict that you are weak or broken. To make this real, I want to help you understand a tiny evening ritual that could set you free over time. Each night before you sleep, write 1 simple sentence. "Today, my heart was tired of." Let it be small and honest. Then 1 more. "Today, my heart longed for." That's it. 2 lines. No analysis. No perfection. Do this for a week, then a month. You will start to see patterns. The same needs, the same ignored boundaries, the same unlived parts of yourself will appear on the page. In the next section, we will look at how these repeated lines point toward your shadow, and how meeting those hidden parts directly can restore the meaning and peace your tired heart has been searching for. So, now we come to the second pillar, meeting the shadow in the middle of your ordinary day, not in a dramatic ritual, not in a crisis, in the quiet moments when you are simply honest with yourself. Let's start with a gentle correction. When you hear the word shadow, you might think only of dark impulses, shameful thoughts, selfish wishes. Jung understood something wider. He saw that the shadow also holds your buried strengths, your unlived desires, your natural vitality. The parts of you that were not allowed to exist in the open had to go somewhere. They went into the dark. This is crucial to understand, because a tired heart is not only weighed down by what is bad, it is also exhausted by constantly holding back what is alive. The anger you never express, the creativity you never risk, the sensuality, the ambition, the need for rest, you keep editing out of your story so you can be acceptable to someone. So how do you actually meet this shadow without overwhelming yourself? You do it in very small, concrete ways. Think of your evening, when the day is slowing down and your mind begins replaying scenes. Here, I want to help you understand a simple practice that could set you free. At night, ask yourself 2 quiet questions. Where did I overreact today? And what did I secretly envy or judge? That's all. No analysis yet. Just notice. Maybe you snapped at a colleague over a small change in plans. Maybe you felt a sharp envy toward a friend who set a boundary you never dare to set. Maybe you judged someone as selfish for resting when you kept pushing. When you find yourself seeing these moments, you are standing at the doorway of the shadow. Overreaction often points to an old wound or a disowned need. Envy often points to a quality or freedom you have pushed into the dark. Harsh judgment is frequently a projection of something you are not yet willing to claim in yourself. Now comes the compassionate response. Instead of arguing with what you find, instead of telling yourself, I shouldn't feel this, you experiment with a different stance. You can write to this part, or imagine sitting across from it. In your own words, you say, I want to help you be seen safely. You are not giving the shadow permission to run your life. You are giving it permission to exist in your awareness. Jung would tell you that this simple inner relationship changes the whole field of your energy. Because what actually happens when you stop fighting the shadow is that the inner war quiets. The psychic energy that was locked in repression begins to return to you as clarity, as grounded emotion, as a little more warmth in your own chest. And you do not do this once. You do it again, tomorrow night, and the night after. Meeting the shadow is not a single breakthrough. It is an ongoing, almost humble rhythm of recognition, one honest moment at a time. You might think such small reflections cannot touch the depth of your exhaustion. Yet if you stay with them, you will notice something subtle. Certain obsessions soften. Certain anxieties lose their edge. In the next section, we will look at how this reclaimed energy lets you step out of pure projection so that other people no longer have to carry the weight of what you refuse to see in yourself. So now we come to one of the most exhausting experiences of all, when someone does not just appear in your life, but lives in your mind, constantly, morning, night, in between tasks, in the quiet, before sleep. I want to help you understand what actually happens when this occurs, because seeing it clearly could set you free. Let's start with a simple but unsettling truth. When a person lives in your mind like that, you are not only relating to them, you are relating to a projection. Jung would tell you that you have placed a piece of your own soul onto that person and then forgotten that it was yours. The image of them you carry is charged with your own longing, your own fear, your own unlived life. This is crucial to understand. The person in your mind is not the actual person. The person in your mind is your story about them, lit up by your own psychic energy. Maybe you see them as the only one who ever really understood you. Maybe you see them as the cruel one who ruined everything. Either way, they are holding something that belongs to you. To begin taking that back, you need a gentle, repeatable question. When you find yourself spiraling into thoughts about them, pause and ask, very simply, what do I admire or hate in them? Do not rush the answer. Let a few qualities appear. Then ask the second question, where does this live in me? Even a little. If you admire their courage, where is your own courage still hidden, still waiting? If you hate their selfishness, where does a small disowned part of you also want to say no, to stop overgiving? Jung understood that the traits we load onto others are often elements of our own shadow, exiled and then met again in someone else's face. Alongside this reflection, create a small inner boundary ritual. When their image intrudes yet again, do not fight it aggressively. Instead, breathe, feel your body, and say inwardly, with calm firmness, I call back my energy. I give you back what is yours. Repeat it as many times as you need. You are training your psyche to separate what is you from what is truly them. Then, give the inner figure somewhere to go. Instead of endlessly replaying old scenes, sit down with a journal or close your eyes in a quiet room and meet them in active imagination. See them in a simple space, a bench, a kitchen table, a doorway. Ask, what do you represent in my life? What do you stand for in me? Write the dialogue that unfolds, or speak it softly. You are no longer chasing the literal relationship. You are listening for the symbol, the mentor, the abandoner, the savior, the judge. As you do this, you will feel the obsession shift. Less about them, more about your own wholeness. In the next section, we will explore how this reclaimed energy can be directed toward individuation itself, so that your tired heart is no longer ruled by any single figure, but guided from a deeper center within you. So now, this deeper center within you is not just an idea. It needs a path, a way of walking through ordinary days. Jung called that path individuation, but I want to help you understand something crucial here. Individuation is not about becoming special. It is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming honest, whole, inwardly aligned. Let's start with this shift. You are not trying to turn yourself into a mystical, flawless version of someone who never struggles. You are actually learning to live less as a performance and more as a quiet truth. Jung understood that most neurosis comes from unlived life, from the parts of yourself you keep backstage. Individuation is simply the slow, merciful process of inviting those parts on stage, one by one, until your outer life and your inner life are in some kind of real relationship. So how do you do that? On a Tuesday, in traffic, answering emails, you ask a very small question. What is one small, truthful step I can take today that feels more like me? Not 10 steps. 1. When you find yourself about to say yes out of guilt, you pause and ask it. When you find yourself dressing, speaking, or agreeing just to avoid disapproval, you ask it again. One small, truthful step that returns a little piece of your energy to yourself. This is crucial to understand. Individuation often looks invisible from the outside. No spiritual fireworks, no grand announcement. It might be sending the text you have been avoiding because it is honest. It might be not sending the text because it would only restart an old projection and exhaust your tired heart again. It might be telling someone, I need time to think, and actually giving yourself that time. Begin to notice where you are performing. Notice the smile that feels tight, the agreement that feels heavy, the conversation where you are constantly scanning the other person's face instead of listening to your own body. Then, gently, you shift just one action per day toward authenticity. You say, I'm not up for that tonight. You admit, that hurt me more than I said. You allow a silence instead of rushing to fill it. What actually happens when you live this way is subtle but profound. Your inner and outer stories start to match. The person in your mind and the person in your life become the same person, yourself. Jung would tell you that this quiet alignment could set you free from a great deal of anxiety, because you are no longer constantly abandoning yourself to keep the peace. And remember, this is lifelong. There is nothing to finish, no final exam in wholeness. Your tired heart is allowed to guide the pace. Some seasons, your step will be bold. Other seasons, the step will be simply getting out of bed and telling the truth to one trusted person. In the next section, we will widen this into a gentle weekly rhythm, so these small steps begin to weave into a stable, sustainable way of living with yourself. So let's widen it now, just as I promised, not into a strict program, into a breathing rhythm, a way your week can quietly hold your tired heart instead of constantly pulling it apart. Let's start with a very gentle template. Imagine one day each week whose only intention is to listen to your heart. One day to turn toward your shadow. One day to notice projections. One day to take a small individuation step. And in between, days that are simply for living, for rest, for being someone who is not always working on yourself. This is crucial to understand. This is not a moral schedule. It is not a spiritual to-do list. Jung understood that when structure becomes rigid, the psyche rebels, your energy collapses, your mind goes numb, and you quietly abandon the whole thing. So you hold this like you would hold a bird, firm enough that it doesn't fly away, soft enough that it can still breathe. On a listening to the heart day, you might do something very small, 10 minutes with a journal, where you write, "Right now my heart feels," and you let the sentence finish itself again and again. Or a walk without headphones, where you simply notice what actually stirs you, what you avoid, what you long for. When you find yourself reaching for distraction, you gently ask, "What am I afraid to feel in this quiet?" On a shadow day, the focus shifts slightly. You might write down one situation from the week that triggered you and ask, "If this reaction belonged to a hidden part of me, what would that part be saying?" Jung would tell you that your shadow speaks in exaggerations, in sharp judgments, in the stories you insist are only about other people. A short, honest paragraph here could set you free more than an hour of self-criticism. On a projection day, you bring awareness to the person who lives most in your mind. You write their name. Then you write, "The story I am telling about them is," and you separate story from fact. What actually happened? What is pure projection? The energy you reclaim from this clarity begins to flow back into your own life, into your own center. On an individuation step day, you do one concrete thing that belongs to your unlived life. Send the email, buy the paint, read 3 pages about a path that has been calling you. 10 minutes of active imagination with an inner figure you met in a dream, small but real. I want to help you understand. You do not need to do all of this at once. Choose 1 or 2 practices. Repeat them gently. Consistency in small, truthful actions reshapes your relationship with yourself, far more than intense bursts of effort. In the next section, we'll turn this from a loose idea into a personal promise, so this rhythm becomes not just possible, but something you quietly commit to living. So now, let's turn that gentle rhythm into something you can actually hold on to. Not a harsh rule, not a demand, a quiet promise that lives close to your tired heart. Let's start with why this matters. Jung understood that the psyche responds deeply to conscious, symbolic acts. When you make a small, deliberate commitment, you are telling your unconscious, "This matters, this is real," and the unconscious listens. This is crucial to understand, because most of your old patterns were formed without any conscious agreement from you. They just happened to you. A promise you choose is different. It is you beginning to participate in your own healing. instead of constantly being carried by habit and exhaustion. It's modest, but it changes the inner relationship. You are no longer just the one who is overwhelmed. You also become the one who cares for the overwhelmed part. So I want to invite you into a very simple practice. One sentence, not a life overhaul, a sentence that begins, "For the sake of my tired heart, I will," and then one small, realistic action. When you find yourself reaching for something huge, something dramatic, pause, soften it, make it smaller than you think it should be. For the sake of my tired heart, I will put my phone down for 5 minutes when I wake up. For the sake of my tired heart, I will place a hand on my chest once a day and ask how I am. For the sake of my tired heart, I will stop reading old conversations when I feel abandoned. Notice how each one is concrete, modest, and possible, even on a difficult day. Jung would tell you that what actually happens when you do this is subtle but powerful. You reclaim a little psychic energy from projection and give it back to yourself. You stop living only in the story about someone else, and you invest in a living relationship with your own soul. It could set you free over time, not because it is grand, but because it is honest and repeated. To help your unconscious take this promise seriously, choose a symbol, a small stone you keep by your bed, a simple ring you already wear, a folded note in your wallet with that one sentence written in your own handwriting. Jung worked constantly with symbols because they bridge mind and matter. They let the invisible become visible. Place this object somewhere you will actually see it. Each time your eyes rest on it, let it quietly ask, "Am I remembering my promise today?" Not as an accusation, but as a gentle tap on the shoulder, and you will forget. Of course you will. You will break your promise, get swept back into old patterns, lose days to overthinking and numb scrolling. This does not mean you failed. The deeper promise is not perfection. The deeper promise is that you will return. Each time you notice you have drifted, you simply come back. You repeat your sentence. You touch your symbol. You begin again, without drama. That is how trust is rebuilt inside you, one return at a time. In the next section, we'll explore how to meet the parts of you that resist even this small promise, so you don't have to fight yourself, but can actually walk with your own resistance as an ally. And even when you make that promise, you will slip, you will forget. You will wake up one morning and realize you are back in the same obsession, the same story, the same tired ache in your chest. This is crucial to understand. That moment is not proof that you have failed. Jung understood that the psyche does not move in straight lines. It moves in spirals. You circle back. You revisit the same themes, the same people, the same wounds, but from a slightly different height, with a slightly different amount of light. So when you find yourself thinking, "I'm here again, nothing has changed, I'm broken," pause. That thought is a projection too. It is your old despair, painted onto the present. I want to help you understand what actually happens when you return to an old pattern. Very often, it means you are ready to see another layer of the truth, a piece of unlived life, a need that could not be admitted before. In that moment, you need a simple inner script, something you can reach for when your mind is racing and your heart feels heavy. You might say, quietly inside, "I see you. We've been here before. What are you showing me now that I couldn't see then?" Let the words be slow. Let them land. You are not attacking yourself. You are beginning a relationship with the part of you that is repeating. Jung would tell you that this turn toward the symptom, instead of away from it, could set you free. Because instead of treating the setback as an enemy, you treat it as a messenger, not your enemy. not your shame, not your proof of failure, but a messenger. And then, instead of trying to fix everything at once, you return to the 4 pillars. Not perfectly, not dramatically, just one small action. Maybe you put your hand on your heart for 1 minute. Maybe you write 3 lines in your journal about the image or person that constantly fills your mind. Maybe you touch your symbol and breathe. One action is enough. One action keeps the bridge open between your conscious self and the deeper layers. Each time you do this, you are teaching your psyche something new. You are saying, when you come back, I will not abandon you. I will not abandon myself. Slowly, trust grows. The inner conflict softens. The heart that once felt exhausted by repetition begins to feel held by continuity. Can you feel how different that is from collapsing into self-blame? From deciding, I'll never change, so why try? In the next section, we'll go even closer to the parts of you that still want to give up, so you can meet their fear directly, instead of letting them quietly run your life from the shadows. So as we come to this quiet place with you, I want to turn, very simply, toward your tired heart. It has carried so much, for so long, often without witness, often without thanks. This is crucial to understand. The exhaustion you feel is not a personal failure. It is the natural weight of years of loyalty, years of staying, of trying, of holding yourself together when someone else was falling apart. Your heart has been faithful to every role you were given: caretaker, peacemaker, the one who thinks ahead so no one gets upset, the one who constantly scans the room and the relationship and your own mind, asking, is it safe? Am I enough? Jung understood this as psychic labor, an invisible work that quietly drains your energy. No wonder you feel tired. So let us bless that tiredness, not fix it, not rush it. Simply recognize that it tells a true story about how hard you have tried to love and be loved. Jung would tell you that you have not walked alone, even in the worst moments. Your shadow has been there, carrying the feelings you were not allowed to feel. Your inner child has been there, holding the original questions. Do I matter? Will someone stay? The symbols that visit you in dreams, in music, in small coincidences, have been there too, trying to guide you back to yourself. These are not enemies. They are companions. They are parts of the self, the deeper organizing center in you that actually wants peace, not constant projection and self-attack. When you find yourself spiraling in your mind about someone, you can remember, my shadow is speaking, my inner child is afraid, myself is still here. Let's start with a simple image. Imagine a future you, not perfect, not finished, just a little more rested, their shoulders softer, their breathing slower, their relationships quieter, more honest, less crowded by fantasy. Can you see them looking back at this exact season of your life with a kind of awe? They remember how heavy everything felt. They remember how real the urge was to give up. And they are grateful that you did not. They are grateful for every small boundary you set, every journal page you filled, every late night moment when you chose to turn toward yourself, instead of toward another endless story about someone else. What actually happens when you take even one small step toward yourself is that individuation moves forward. The self has a little more room. Your heart rests for one more breath. So as we close this part of our time together, I want to offer you a sentence you can carry into those overwhelmed moments. You can even whisper it now, if you like. My heart is tired, but it is not broken. It is becoming. Say it when you wake in the night. Say it when the old obsession pulls at your attention. Say it when you feel like you are back at the beginning, because you are not. You are on a path. And in the next part, we will look more closely at how to keep walking that path when everything in you wants to turn back. So as we come to the end of this time together, I want to help you understand something simple and very concrete. Your heart does not need another big theory right now. It needs a next step. Let's start with the next 24 hours, not the next year, not your whole life story, just one day. Within that time, choose one small living act that says to your soul, I am listening now. It could be a 10-minute journal entry where you write, without censoring, Dear Soul, and see what actually appears on the page. It could be a slow, quiet walk without your phone, where you notice what your mind constantly returns to. It could be rewatching the part of this video that touched something raw and pausing to breathe when you feel yourself tighten. What matters is not which action you choose. What matters is that you choose, because that choice is you taking your psychic energy back from projection and giving it gently to yourself. And when you find yourself tired again, when someone starts to live rent-free in your mind again, come back here. Let this not be a one-time experience that you consume and then forget. Let it be a companion. Jung understood that the work of individuation is not done in a single breakthrough. It is done in these quiet returns, over and over, to the place inside you that is asking to be seen. You can replay a section when you wake at 3 a.m. and your chest feels tight. You can let a single sentence be your anchor for a whole week. You can use this material the way you might use a handrail on a dark staircase, not as the destination, but as support while you find your own footing. And there is something else. Somewhere in your life, there is someone whose heart is also tired, someone who is constantly overthinking a relationship or trapped in the same old story about not being enough. If it feels right, share this video with them, or simply share one idea that stayed with you, not to fix them, not to be their therapist, but as an act of quiet solidarity. I see your tired heart. You are not alone. This is crucial to understand. Healing is never only personal. It ripples. As we close, remember this. The very fact that you have listened this far means that a conversation has already begun inside you. Jung would tell you that your willingness to turn inward, to question the stories in your mind, is itself an act of individuation. The conscious part of you and the deeper soul in you are speaking now, and they will keep speaking long after this video ends. Trust that. Return when you need to. Take one small step in the next day, and let this be not an ending, but the beginning of a different relationship with yourself.